let's get a jump on our Valentine crafts. Keep watching. I'm Brandy, and this is Making It My Own DIYs. Welcome back. For the first project, we're going to do a Victorian inspired swag. We're going to take 2 of these Dollar Tree pink trees. What other type of little wood hearts or paper hearts you have, a card or a printout that is Victorian inspired. And then of course there's a variety of beads and pearls and stickers that you can get from Dollar Tree, just to give you some options of things that I think would work for vintage Victorian inspired. And then these beautiful bundles of flowers, and these were thrifted. I got 2 bundles of these, and they match perfectly, I think, with this card. So just make sure it's coordinating. I thrifted these beautiful ribbons. Alright, so we're going to take these out of the box. All you're going to need is the 2 trees. You're going to spread those branches apart and out so that they're flat on one side. And pretty much you can make them flat on both sides. Just spread them all out to these sides. We're going to be using these branches of the trees to connect our pieces down to the swag. Now this is not the same type of swag as we did in a previous Valentine's video, so it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to make a long, almost like a teardrop shaped swag, but it's going to be long. It's going to be like, I think it ends up being like 23 inches maybe. You're just going to overlap them and then use your zip ties to go through the bottom. I like to make sure that they go around sections that have branches because it kind of keeps them from slipping back and forth. It kind of locks them in place. So I'm just going to use 2 to hold it together. 1 on each end to hold both of those middle sections together. And you clip off your extra, and then again with the fluffing out on the sides so that we have plenty on each side to hang onto whatever type of ribbons and greenery we want to put down on this. And there will be a lot on it. So whatever type of greenery you like, you can use. I have some, I think this is eucalyptus. It's faux eucalyptus and a little bit of ferns. My ferns, you ended up not even seeing those because they're flat. They don't have any dimension. They would have been better as flyaways. So you could actually skip this part if you don't want to do it. But you can see here how I'm connecting them down to the base. You just grab one branch and twist it around. That's all you have to do. And you're going to go all the way up and down this way. We want it to look kind of wider at the top and more tapered at the bottom. So you'll see as I'm going through the process exactly how I do that. I'm going to take 2 of the little picks and put up top, kind of pointing upward and out to the side a little bit. And it's going to extend past the pink of the tree underneath. That's okay. I kind of like the idea. It makes it look a little wider. It makes it look like you spend a little more time and money when you were making it. Even though we don't, because you know I use my thrifted things. And I recycle. I have used these picks in so many different things. And I just pull them out when I'm done, and I just use them again. I love it. You can really, really, really save your money when you can use the same things in your projects over and over again. So for me, yeah, budget is always something to consider. Always. I don't care how much money you have. I really think that sticking to a budget teaches you a lot of things, and self-control and such. So yeah, I guess you learn those types of lessons with crafting too, don't you? Okay, so it is going to look messy, and if you've ever watched any of my videos before, especially when it has to do with florals and wreaths, I always say that, you know, it's going to look worse before it looks better, so just don't stop, because I actually almost stopped once I got this base layer down and, you know, thought this is not going to work. I'm losing my vision here. But then it worked out. It worked out perfectly, and I'm okay. I'm okay now with it. I really like the way that it turned out. It was a big surprise, but you'll see that. I always like to show my final pieces in the end, so you will see that. Okay, so now that we've got all the greenery down, we're going to start adding these florals. And these particular picks are wrapped with like a papery type stuff, and they're in sections. So there's actually like 6 sections, but they're in 2s. You can see here. Then I just pull it down and we can separate those bundles into smaller bunches. You can trim down the wires and then you can just kind of twist up the ends so that they stay together. Or you can use some floral wire to twist them together. Whichever way you prefer to do that is okay. It was very easy to do. I love the wild look of these flowers. They just look like wildflowers to me. And they just look like, I don't know, I don't see a lot of huge florals in the Victorian things that I've seen. I see, you know, roses and things like that, but for the most part, what you see is sprays of kind of what maybe you would see in a wildflower field, you know, something like that. Kind of a variety, and they're kind of small. And I just really just took the inspiration from the card for how this would be, for how it would lay out, and what would look like it would go together. I hope that makes sense. And then, you know, a lot of it too with crafting is you just kind of go with your gut. You just kind of add here and there, and if you don't like it when you look at it, take it off, start again, right? That's all you got to do. So again, for this to be a teardrops kind of shaped swag, I like to make most of my flowers point downward. And then up toward the top, I like some of them to be facing up and outward, just like we did with the greenery. And all you have to do once you get enough down there is just kind of thread your little wires and your stems right down into what's already wrapped up underneath. It'll become kind of like a mat. It's kind of woven down there because you got so many wraps that everything locks into place and it just stays there really, really well. And then, and I want my flowers to be laying flat. I want them to kind of be out a little bit. And I want to pull some of the greenery that is under the flowers up and through there so that you get a little representation of all the greenery that you put under there. And you can see a little of the ferns sticking out on the sides. So maybe if you do the ferns, keep them closer to the outside or use them as flyaways. So here is my homemade bow making tool. I do have a video on that if you are interested. It is very helpful with certain types of bows. So I'm just going to put this down, and I'm going to have, I think, about 12 inches of tails, probably longer than that, but I do trim them down. And then I'm going to have 6-inch loops on each side. And then when you have this ribbon, you can actually see the print on both sides, but one side looks faded and the other side is very crisp. So I'm just making sure that in the center I give it a little twist so that I keep the pretty part of the bow on the outside. Just like that. And I'm just laying that loop right on top of the other one to make sure that it is the same size. There are lots of ways to make bows, and you could make it smaller and smaller toward the center, but for this bow I just wanted to go ahead and do it like this and put 6 loops on the left and 6 on the right. There are people who like or prefer to have odd numbers, and that's probably the best way to do it, because I know in floral design odd numbers seem to be the way to go. But you know me, I have to have the same amount on each side. For some reason in my brain that makes me happy. So that's how I'm going to do mine. But you can do yours any way you like. And if you don't like this bow, use whatever type of bow you know how to make already. And that'll be fine too. But a simple bow like this I think would be good for the style that I'm going for. So I'm going to use a pipe cleaner and twist around the center of the bow. And then you can just start pulling the loops out. Put your hand in the middle and push those wires out, because this is wired bow. This will not give you the same effect if you use a floppy ribbon that doesn't have any wire in it. And just kind of fluff it out. And then I'll turn that one inside out because I didn't flip it in the right direction. Got to get those bows fluffed. Then I'm going to feed my chenille stem or my pipe cleaner right through there, making sure that it wraps around that center pole part of the tree. And yes, it's a struggle. I'm struggling here, but I do finally get it through there. and I'm going to pull both sides to the back, and then I will twist it around to hold it in place. I'll be trimming that up later. Now I'm just going to make sure that before I make it really tight that I have the bow where I want it on the swag. Now it is up in the top, probably 1/3 of this. I like that position for this. I think it's going to give me room to put the card there too, so it'll work. And then I'm going to dovetail my ends. I do cut these down a little bit to make them a little bit shorter. And I'm going to make a couple of these little things that we'll be using in a little while. They're just going to be some false tails. You're just going to fold it over in half and then dovetail it. Then I have a couple of little sections, and I think I made 3 of these, and just put those aside. Now we're going to work on the card. So I'm turning the card inside out and kind of pinching and pushing and weakening that bond in the middle, and then I can just tear it off or cut it off of the back piece and then trim it up on top so it looks nice and neat. If you like a frayed look though, you could certainly leave it. And there's a beautiful card up close with the little cherub and the little couple in the back. I'm going to use a piece of cardboard that I have trimmed down a little bit. I'm going to add some school glue, some Elmer's glue, and put this down on here and press it down with my hands, and then take the little squeegee and make sure that it is nice and flat and every piece of that card is sticking to that board behind it. And then I'll just trim that off. This is just going to give it a little stronger of a base, and it will give us something to attach another pipe cleaner to so we can put it down. Now I'm just using a little bit of this, it's like an alcohol ink or something. Don't usually use it, but I have a few times, and a tiny sponge brush just to go all around my edges of this card to give it a little bit of an aged look. I'll let it dry because it does take a little while. Then I'm going to take some of these little pearl beads and very carefully, with my magnifying glasses on, I'm going to put a couple of these little pearls here and there, and I'm putting in the center of the wheels and on the little card that the bird is holding up top. And then these beautiful Dollar Tree flower stickers, I'm going to put one over each of the hearts, and I guess where the headlights would be if this was a car maybe, and press that down. I love that it's got the gold on it around the edges. It's really pretty. And then I'll add right to the center another one of those little pearl beads. It's just a little dimension, it's just a little something extra, and with Victorian I think that that does make a difference in your projects. So I've got some of this old trim. I don't know how old it is. To me it looks like it's from the 80s, but who knows. And I'm going to, look how pretty. It's like a lace with a gold in it. I'm going to put this on the back of the card to sort of frame it out. Gives it a little something extra. Makes it look a little richer, a little fancier, and I think that it will draw a little more attention to it once we put it on this wreath, because it's going to be beneath that floral ribbon that really is an eye catcher. But I still want the card to get some attention, because that's the whole point in here. And in this video you're going to be seeing, I guess, probably 3 different color schemes for the Victorian inspired look, and you can just decide which one you like best. If you do like the pastels and the pinks, this may be the one for you. I love that it has those pretty pinks and blues together, and the wildflowers, of course. Go all the way around the card and then trim it off where you overlap it, so that you don't see a you don't want to be seeing a gap there. And then there's the little frame around it. I know, has that grainy chic look, I guess. Put a little hot glue on the back, then we're going to put a little piece of cardboard or a little paper cardstock on the top of it. Let it cool, and then you know that the glue has set up, and then we're just going to feed that through there just like we did with the bow till we get to the back. And then do not pull it all the way down to tighten it, just pull it enough that it's sort of floating on the bow. I am reusing these beautiful hearts that I used last year in a Valentine's Day project. As you can see, all the paper on the back. And I'm going to put some floral picks on the back so that we can put these down in here without them just falling into the frame. I don't want it falling into it and disappearing. I want it to kind of stand out toward the front. So I'll find my placement, and then I can add some hot glue and keep them in place. It's important when you have something that's got a little weight to it or heavy that you hold it in place until the glue sets up, or when you let go it's going to fall down and it will dry exactly that way. Okay, so now I'm going to take another little piece of floral pick, and this just happens to be colored white, and some floral wire, and I'm going to wrap it around the center of those little tails that we made earlier that I told you we would need, like I think 3 of them, depending on how many you want. Then I'm going to add some hot glue and just push these up into the bottom. And I am looking for a tight spot in there. If you see me moving it around a few times, I'm looking for a spot where it will really lock it in and hold it in place. I decided to trim these up more. This is where I do this because I want the appearance of it to be, it's kind of rounded out on the bottom, right? But still giving it that teardrop shape. I hope that makes sense to you. It does in my head, but sometimes when it comes out my lips, it just does not sound the same. Alright, so now I've got those little tails there, and you can do some in the top if you would like. And then finish adding in whatever hearts you have. Now I only had 4 hearts. I did not have 5, so I had to use the even number. And I'm just going to put a couple of bends in my ribbon. You don't have to necessarily leave them straight down. You can bend them, you can curl them, you can twist them. Whatever it is that you like to do to make it perfect for you. Now we're going to make a hanger. So this exposed end up here, which is the top, I'm just folding over about 8 inches of that ribbon, and I'm going to glue it down. I'm going to start in the front and glue it into the center, and then I will flip it over and wrap the sides toward the center. And now I just put those 2 layers together so they wouldn't move around, and then do it over here on the back side. And of course, while I'm on the back side, this would be a great time for me to cut off the extras on the back so that it looks nice and neat. I'm going to take another tail without adding it to a pick and just glue it straight to the back of the card. And that really fills out the bottom of this swag and gives it a little something extra that I think makes it just really pretty and stand out. I hope you like this one. I really do like it. The next is going to be a Victorian inspired sign. We're going to take these keys and hearts from the Dollar Tree and some of this beautiful Victorian paper that I've had quite some time. I think I have 2 more sheets left. It's tissue paper. A heart from the Dollar Tree, and some white paint and a sponge brush. I'm going to take the tag and the hanger off. I'm going to add some of this paint all over here. Now the reason I'm painting it is because the lighter the color underneath, the more the items will stand out on your paper. It'll really see the difference in the brightness between the side that's on the table and the side that's on the white. That's the look that I like. I really want it to be bright and pop against the white that's in the background. And you will not be able to see that white, so that you don't have to do a perfect paint job, and you can certainly use chalk paint for that if you would like. You could even spray paint it. So I'm going to trim up a square enough to work with, make it a little more manageable, and then I'm going to take my glue stick and rub it all over the heart. The reason the purple is disappearing so quickly is because I used my little heat tool to dry my paint. So it's sort of warm, and it makes the glue dry kind of quickly. And it looks like it wouldn't dry at all at this point, but it does. It still has some tack, and it does hold on to this tissue paper with no problem whatsoever. And I love that there's no bubbling. The paper is not wet, so it's not tearing. It's not hard to manage. I'm going to go from sort of the center outward to make sure if there are any wrinkles or lumps or bumps, we can get them out. And then using my emery board from Dollar Tree, I'm just going to file off all of this extra. Very easy to do. You can cut this with scissors if you don't have an emery board, a sanding block, or some sanding paper. Some people I've seen really like those finger sanders, so that would work too. I'm going to take some brushed gold paint, and I am going to sort of put it on this little stencil brush and then go up and down all over several of these different hearts. Now, there are several different styles, so I'm just painting one of each style till I can decide which one I want. And I'll also paint the keys. I'm going to go over with that same brush. I didn't add any more paint to it, and I'm going to go all over the edges, and then on the probably like the last quarter inch from the outside inward, just to age it a little bit. I have some red cord. You could use red jute or a piece of thin red ribbon, some lace here if you wanted to do that. I'm going to flip it over on the back and glue it down. And put the glue on there, and then we'll use the little pieces of paper to kind of lock it into place. You could trim off the excess. Then I want this to look like it is hanging from the cord without actually having them hang from the cord. Now, from a distance, you cannot really, it's hard to see this gold. It really does not pop whatsoever. So you may choose to do pastel colors, you may do silver, you might want to do white here, depending on the busyness of your paper in the background, because you just really cannot see this unless you were up close. I'm just adding it right to the tippy tops to have it glue down to the cord. I'm not trying to glue it to the heart in the back, just a little bit so it sticks down to the board, and it still kind of has that freedom of movement. It moves around a little bit, and I like that. So now I have some more of these flowers, and I want to add these for a little more dimension, but you certainly don't have to. I'm going to put this really pretty flower on the bottom. It is a cream color with gold. My finger is gold. You can see my hands have paint all over them. And then I just added two here and there. And there's the one on the bottom. And I took that same dry brush with the gold and went over those to kind of dull them down a little bit. Now I'm going to just glue these back on rather than poke them through a hole in the front. I'm just going to glue it on the back. But you can certainly go back through the original holes if you would like to. Then you can go ahead and color that back white. There's how it looks. The next project is a Victorian inspired cone, also known as a Tussie Mussy. So you're seeing a bunch of vintage cording and lace and trim that I got from the thrift store. There's a little cone here, some pitberry, a wooden heart that I painted gold, and an extra one of those gold hearts, and this beautiful piece of fabric that I got from Goodwill. Gorgeous, gorgeous, and I really thought Victorian when I saw it. I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock and wrap around our cone, because the end of that cone is blunt. I'm just going to use paper to go right over the top. The cone on the inside is necessary because we're going to put our florals into it. So there is method to my madness. I'm going to use a little bit of clear tape here and just tape this off, but of course you can use any type of tape that you have, or you can hot glue it if you got the patience for it. Then I'm going to cut down the top a little bit with my scissors. I'm going to leave about a ½ inch from the top of the foam. It's going to give us a little edge to wrap our fabric around shortly. Let's see how it looks so far. I'm going to grab my hot glue and go to the corner of my fabric and just kind of roll and pull to make sure that I'm going to have good coverage. And then when I know it's all the fabric I'm going to need to cover the white, I'll just go ahead and trim it off. I should have used bigger scissors for that, right? But my short ones were what I had in reach, so I grabbed them. So I'm adding some more glue here and just going to roll inward. Just roll and push down. Get that cone in straight. Then you can trim off so you have enough still on there for you to fold over and make a nice finished edge over your paper. You can fold that inward and then glue it down to the paper on the inside. And that's really easy to do. You just add a little bead of hot glue and fold it in and tuck it against the wall. You don't want to have your fabric going all across the foam, because if you do that, you won't be able to push your flower stems through there. And we have to be able to use that foam for the floral arrangement we're putting in there. So you're going to go all the way around till you have a nice edge. Then we're going to fill out our edge with a little bit of trim, and I'm going to double up the trim, kind of measuring off how much I'm going to need and then trimming it down. Then I'm going to use some hot glue, and I'm not going to go all the way to the top edge, but pretty close, maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the top. That's just the way I did it, but feel free to do it any way that you would like. I know that the Crafter Square in the Dollar Tree has lots of beautiful ribbon now, and yarn and all kinds of stuff, so you just use what you have on hand. You could cut a doily for this if you wanted to, like if you had an old stained doily, or you could cut one of those white paper doilies that you can get at Dollar Tree, and you could use something like that. And you don't have to use fabric, you can use paper. I actually have done a Tussie Mussy before. I did it last year. You've probably seen it in one of my compilation videos, but I'll try to link that, and that way you can see how to do it with paper. I'm just going to take the other piece and go right over the top all the way to the edge with this really pretty, it's sort of a beigey, mauvey, taupey kind of color. Taupey, I don't know if that's a word. I'm going to take some of the gold cord and just put it on the back side, and I'm determining the back side by where I have the seam of my fabric in the back. And I'm just going to use clamps to hold that in place for a minute till it dries. Then you'll see me pull it off, but it actually is a minute or two before I pull it off, because I don't want it to fall off. I don't want to glue it to my table. And so this is our hanger. You would hang a Tussie Mussy off of a door or the wall or someplace like that. I have some of these, I don't know what that is, like a wood chip. Then I have some thrifted ferns, and I have those beautiful pink pieces from the Dollar Tree. Those are gorgeous, and I need more because they're really pretty. I'm going to take these fern picks, get whatever greenery you like. Like I said before, I think fern and a smaller scale greenery looks better with Victorian. If you look at the pictures and their cards and things like that, you see a lot of ivy and fern, stuff like that. Just do your research. You know, I don't know everything, and I'm certainly not somebody who is I'm not well versed in Victorian. I just go by my own research. You know, I just do my own thing here. So if you don't like it, or if it's not what you think is appropriate, then you can certainly change up and do it however you like. I'm going to add the bigger florals next. And I think one of them is a rose, and I'm not sure what these other two are, but they look really pretty in here together, I think. That cream color, really nice. And then I'm going to add in the picks that I cut apart into smaller sections, because we don't want anything being crazy looking. Trying to keep this little bouquet or this little cone nice and tight. So I'm putting the florals close together in sort of a mound or a rounded shape. I'm going to go closer to the edge of the cone. You can bend your wires to do that so they stay in place. And then, you know, a little bit higher toward the top, and fill that out. This really is a really pretty bouquet also. Isn't that pretty? Maybe even a bridesmaid could carry something like that, depending on your style. That's really pretty. And if you notice, I just set it down in a jar so that I could work from the top, and you could see what I'm doing from the top. I can't give you all angles because I only have one camera, but I can certainly show you above and then give you frequent looks of how it's going. I think most people agree that that was satisfactory. So I'm just taking some of the gold pitberry, just because I wanted to add some more gold to it, a little bit of richness. And I'm just going to stick those in there. I'm not even giving them a good twist. I'm just kind of letting them be wild, kind of turn them to the side, a little bend here and there. And then to work on the charm, we're going to put the smaller heart right on top of the larger heart. Just going to glue it down. I'm going to take some of this cord, and I think I end up with about 9 inches of the cord that I'm using, because you can't really see what I'm doing here. I apologize. Remember what I told y'all about getting in the groove. Then I'm going to put a piece right at the top of the key, Then I'm going to flip it over and glue the key sort of dangling down from the center bottom of the heart. And then I actually also glued the top section into a loop. So it will hang down like this freely. Gorgeous. You take a piece of wire or floral wire or one of those floral styrofoam pins and then just pin it down in there so it hangs. You could always tack it down with a little glue if you prefer to do it that way, but I like the idea of a little movement. It really catches the eye, I think. And I think it turned out nicely. Surely with the 3 projects that we have done, one of these would be something that you would like to have in your home or that you would like to try. It gives a gift for somebody. Valentine's Day is coming up. It's less than a month away, and it's always important to let the people around you that are a part of your life to know that you love them and you care about them and that you thought enough about them to make something for them. These do not cost a lot of money. You know, you could easily do these with things that you already have at home, maybe. Just got to kind of think outside the box. I truly believe that all of us do possess some creativity. We're all given gifts by God. And I feel like if you learn something, maybe you should teach something. You know, if it's something that brings you joy, and it has been definitely 100% found to bring me joy. Most definitely crafting does that for me. And also the joy that I get from sharing with other people who are like-minded, who, you know, and maybe people who didn't think the same as me, but then maybe I changed their way of seeing things. That's important too, right? First, it's going to be a mystery lady print. Of course, we will be needing some paint brushes. You know, we got to paint, and here are paints we're going to be using. Chalk paint in rich black, and then a rich espresso. I have a frame that I thrifted that's got a lot of detail in it. It's raised, and I think this will be really pretty for what we're going to do. You can see it's got kind of a lip. Here's the print that I chose from TEMU. Dark and mysterious, yet elegant and beautiful. This is a piece of cardboard that I saved from a calendar. So I want to make sure that my piece of cardboard is going to fit on the back of the frame because I want it to look like there's a lip. It's going to create more shadow. And that's the look that we want, right? Of course, dark romance. Now, I'm just trying to center this on the sides, and I will start adding just a little bit of kind of smeared hot glue. Like you want to put on your cool temp, and you want to just smear it out a little bit with the tip of the gun. And then you're going to press it down. And I'm going in the area where the white is because I don't want to cause any wrinkling or damage on the print part. So I'll do that on the bottom side first, flip it over, then I'll go right to the back with a little bit. Now, of course, you could cut this off if you would like, but this works for me. I'm going to press it down into that glue. This is going to give it a clean edge and make it look more professional. Same thing here. We're just going to press it down, make sure that you're not getting any bubbles, wrinkles, or any of that in there. Just keep going away from the middle and outward, and then finish with the last side. This is easy to do. It doesn't matter what your glue line looks like on the back because it's on the back. No one's going to see it, and we're going to be covering this up so it is nice and finished. It would be a beautiful Valentine's gift for the one you love with a little spooky heart like yours. Okay, so let's do something to this frame. I'm going to protect my table. I'll grab my black chalk paint and I'm going to go all over this frame. I'm making sure that I tap down into all of the little recessed areas and all of the areas above. I'm going to be sure that I get the outside edges of the frame, the joints where they connect, and then we're going to flip it over and we're going to get right on the inside. So everything will be black, every bit of it. See here? because we're going to make this look like a recessed canvas. We want to make sure it is all black and it blends well. So this is a thick piece of felt. I got a big stack of these at the thrift store, but you can definitely buy these probably at any place you buy craft supplies. That's going to be the back of the frame. We're going to trim this down to make sure that it's going to fit underneath that black piece of felt. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it and trimming it down as, as small as I need it to be. Now it's going to fit, so I'll just put it in place, and because it's on cardboard, we can bend it up a little bit while still holding it in place and gluing it down. You're not going to see the glue line here, so do what you can, do what you must. All right, and now it is pretty much centered on there. And we need to create like a cameo type effect. And I'm going to do that by putting some black on here. Now, this is just my way of disguising that white line, which you could certainly cut off, but I love the depth that this is going to give. So it's just a bit of a paint technique. I have no idea if anybody's asking me. I'm self-taught with painting. I don't know names of things. I don't know what you would call this exactly, but I call it pretty. So that's what we're going to go with. I'm making sure that I get on the outside of that cardboard too, all over that white line where the print stops. So once I get it on there, I'm going to start kind of tapping it back and forth so that it creates like a more of a feathered or blended type effect, which makes using the foam brush much, much easier, like a better option in my opinion than using any type of a brush, unless you had maybe a makeup brush, makeup sponge, maybe that would work. So I'm rounding the edges. You can see here I'm kind of rounding the edges. This gives it a little bit of a vignette, or like I said before, I don't know why I'm saying cameo, but you know what I mean. We're rounding it out on the corners. This, again, is going to give it more depth once it is placed into the frame around the edges. It's going to give it more shadowy, mystery, suspense, that good old look that we're looking for in this video. So now I've got that part done. I'm going to be sure I let it dry. Then I'm going to grab some antiquing wax, just a tiny bit on that brush, and blend that black into the background of the photo. It's going to make, it's just another one of those things that gives you more depth. I don't really know how to explain that more to you, but you see how light and bright that background is? We want to bring that down just a little bit, almost to look like, maybe she's in a haunted house, right? Maybe this is a haunted Victorian home. So we're going to give it that mystery by adding a little bit to it. It's still quite a bit light around her and around her face and her upper body. So I'm going to use in the same direction, back and forth. I'm going to go over in front of her and behind her to give this a little more dimension and depth. And this is the result. And I love it. And it didn't take long to do. You just got to let your paint dry, right? Love it. So here's the frame in black that is completely dried. And it's already got black felt on the back of it. All right. So I'm going to take this espresso now. And I'm going to put it down on just my little piece of cardboard so that I can tap it off. Now, I did not have a chippy brush that was dry for this. Everything had been used and washed. So I took another brush and cut into it into rough edges, and I'm going to be using that instead. We use what we have, right? And look how this starts to build. It is so pretty. I always, always encourage you to go light the first time. I don't want blobs in there that I have to wait to dry to go back and correct. So tap as much as you can off, and then by pulling this brush across all of those raised areas, you can still see the black in between, and all of the upper pieces are highlighted. So the beautiful, whatever you call the decorative edges there, they're highlighted. And I think that is so gorgeous. Of course, if you don't like this technique or you don't like this color that I've chosen, consider maybe using like an aged silver or a maybe a copper, whatever color that you like. This is my go-to metallic color. It just looks so good to me with the gothic and, romantic, dark academia look. Look at it, y'all. Is that not gorgeous? It's amazing what just a little bit of paint will do. And it is perfect, I think, for this beautiful print that I got. And this is not a sponsored video, but I think I paid like $2 for that print. It was very cheap. Okay, so I've got some of this velvet ribbon that came from Dollar Tree. And we're going to make a hanger for this before we put our print on, because we want the back, the back of the frame, or the felt that we're going to put down with the print on it, to cover up the bottom of this. So we're going to make a little loop. And this is probably a foot of ribbon, if I had to guess. And I'm going to put it down right over that original hanger that was there. Then I have this curtain, whatever this is. Y'all know what these are, right? You put your curtains on them. I get them at the thrift store all the time, different sizes, different colors. Some are metal, some are wood. But this is going to be perfect to use as a hanger for this beautiful piece. So I'm going to cover up that original piece there. Grab my handy dandy staple gun, and I'm going to staple on either side of the original hanger. It's going to hold it in place, and I'm going to take that picture, make sure you got it in the right direction, and I'm just going to give it a few staples to hold it in place. And I just kind of eyeballed what the center would be to make sure that my print is centered back into the frame. Didn't have to use glue here, just got it all stapled into place. And she ain't going nowhere, y'all. Not nowhere. Now, I'm careful. I'm underneath where that other hanger is, so it will hold. And look at her. Oh, that's beautiful. So here's that ribbon I was talking about, and it was from Halloween. And I picked up a couple of spools of it. The drawback on this is there's only 3 feet of ribbon. That's the entire, what you're looking at is the entire roll. It's silliness, but let's put a bow on here. We want to give it a little bit more elegance, and she is wearing her beautiful clothing and her hair is up, so let's give her a little more glamour. I just got some black string or black cording over there. I'm just going to use that to tie around the middle, but you can use what you have. I don't want this to necessarily be a piece of jute. I don't want the brown showing. But we're going to cover it up, so I'll show you what you do if you only have jute or you only have floral wire or whatever you have. You can still make this pretty. Going to cut those at a slant, but you can dovetail whatever you like. And then I'll cut those off. I'm going to come up here to the top, right where those 2 pieces are, where the ribbon overlaps that loop, and I'll just press that bow right down into it. Now protect your fingers if there's a chance that you might hurt yourself. And we're going to embellish the middle of that. I love this button. I find these things at the thrift store, and I've got a little bag, just a very little bag. I don't want to use the cameo here. I think that this one is going to be pretty, but I need to change it from the brassy or gold look to the colors that I've already used. So I'm just pushing it down into the top of that ribbon holder so that I can keep it still somewhat and flat while I apply that beautiful espresso. And then I'm just going to use a damp Q-tip to wipe the paint off of the stone in the middle. Now, I could definitely have left that stone black, and that would have been beautiful. Isn't that pretty? However, this Tuscan red very closely matches that carpeting that's on the stairs that she's on. I thought, let's layer this paint on here and use this. Once it is painted up, look how pretty that is. That's a couple of coats of paint now. I'm going to use some gloss after it's completely dry, the gloss Mod Podge. I'm going to go over that stone completely and also over the metal part. It's actually plastic, but it's made to look like it's metal, right? You know how they do buttons. Now, if you have a pretty rhinestone or something, you could certainly use that there. But look how pretty that is. Such a beautiful color. I love the results of that. So it won't sit completely flat with the little button part in the back. And since it's plastic, I can easily just cut that off. You could also use your scissors if you've got some tough scissors. Then I'll add some hot glue and put it in its new home, right in the middle. Y'all always protect your fingers, okay? Always protect your fingers. I've just gotten kind of used to where I put my hands. I don't have that many accidents as much. I love this. Let's go ahead at this point and kind of age this round also, or this loop. I thought at first I would leave it black because the bow is black, but it looks like a piece of the hardware, and since the rest of the hardware is done this way, I thought it appropriate to follow through and do it this way. And the results are so wonderful. I absolutely love how this turned out. It's very pretty. For Valentine's Day, for any day. You could even embellish it with rose or any type of flower. You could use a black flower, a black dahlia maybe would be pretty there. Whatever you would like to do. I'm going to leave mine plain. Come and watch my videos on Mondays and Thursdays at 6. It's free. The next is going to be amber candlesticks. All right, I'm going to have E6000 here. Definitely need some super glue. These are 2 little half rounds that I have. Candlesticks that I thrifted. They are wood. We're going to use these on the top so that we have a place to put these beautiful glass cups. All right, so I'm going to use my oil rub bronze and some of this amber glass paint. My spray bottle's outside. We're going to put these together. So we're going to use a little bit of E6000. I'm just putting it in like 4 different spots on here. And I always do my E6000 first. It gives it a minute to set up like it should. And then it gives me time to quickly put on my hot glue so that it doesn't all dry immediately. I'm using the 2 glues because hot glue will hold it in place so that the super glue will take effect. Same thing here. Feel free to take a level and put on the bottom when you flip it over so that you can make sure that this is centered and it's not slanted, because if you have something that's slanted, then your cups will be slanted and it will be very obvious. Okay? Now I'm going to take these outside and spray paint them, let them dry, and then use the amber paint on the cups. What a beautiful look that gives. Now these look a little dark, but stay with me now, because once you put the lights in there, oh my goodness. Okay, so now we're going to grab that E6000. Glass will not stick as tightly or as securely if you just use hot glue. So you want to put some E6000 on there and your hot glue, just like we did when we put these little half rounds on the top of the candlestick. Okay, and I'm also going to be putting a little extra glue in the middle of it just to make sure it stays. So we're going to set that down. Then I'm going to flood the bottom all the way up to that first lip with the hot glue. I do not want this falling off at all. You could use a lighter coat of the amber if you would like to, but I was having some issues with my bottles, and instead of giving up on this project that I have thought about for a long time, I decided to roll with it. We're going to make it work, right? All right, so now, same thing. We're going to use a little hot glue, and we're going to use our E6000 or whatever super glue that you have that you want to use that works with glass. And then I'm going to flood the bottom of it with a big glue tool. To make a nice solid surface, we're going to let those cool. This is how they will look. I'm not going to add any extra pretty to it. This is so easy, very beginner friendly. Look how dark and mysterious this looks with my little fairy lights in there. But you could also use tea lights if you want to. The next is going to be our butterfly and roses. All right, I'm going to use scrap foam here. I'm not sure what this wood piece is, but I got it from the thrift store. I've got a dowel rod. It's about 18 inches long, I think. 2 butterflies from Dollar Tree, and they are exactly the same print, the same size, or the same cutout, whatever. You see? Perfect. Then I'm going to use a little sponge brush. I'm going to grab that espresso again, the Tuscan red, and that rich black chalk paint. Of course, we're going to start by taking off our tags, anything that we hang these pieces with, whatever they originally came with. I've got these 2 little scraps of wood. Like I said, I pick up stuff all the time. Don't even know what these are, but you could use a little piece of paper on the back if you wanted to, just to fill in the holes where the hangers were, because we don't need to use those. I'll take some spackling, and I'm going to go right in the inside of the holes that are on the other side, and these will be our outside pieces. So this is what you will see, not the round part. And then I'm going to use just a little scraper here to get anything out that's not flat down on that surface like it should be. Just pick it out of there, make it nice and neat and crisp. Once it is dry, we can begin to paint. Now, this part I'm kind of freehanding because it doesn't have any lines to show where the body of this butterfly is. So I'm using my own knowledge of the shape of a butterfly, and I'm going to trace this out with the black, or fill it in with the black, I should say. You can use whatever type of brush you need, whatever works best for you. I just want to make sure that I get enough on there that this is rich and dark, and we know that this is the center of the butterfly. It will matter as I begin to layer the paint on there, and we will do some layering, but please don't be afraid of any of that. If I taught myself to do it, you can teach yourself to do it, right? And at least I'm here to help you, to show you how to do it, okay? So if you need to pull this video up when you get ready to do it, then you just pull this video up and we'll do it together. See, it's not perfect. That's okay. I'm not going for perfect. And then we're going to do the other one. And we're going to let those dry, or use your drying tool or a fan or whatever you have. Then I'm going to grab that Tuscan red and dip into that and then tap it off here. Now, the reason I'm not using a brush is because the insides of these cutouts are dark. They're like a wood color, like a darker color on the inside of the cutouts. And that's probably has something to do with the laser that cut it out, but I like the depth that gives, and I don't want to take that away by globbing the paint on in each of those little sections of the cutout here. I don't want to do that. So to preserve that, I can use just a little bit of paint and just pounce that on the top, and that way there's no dripping. Does that make sense? Okay. Also, as I'm doing this, I'm going to make sure that I leave a section next to the body of the butterfly that is probably 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch, you can see here, that I want to leave the wood color. And you'll see why later. All right, I'm going to spin it around and we'll start the other side. This is very easy to do. And again, if you don't have a sponge brush like this, grab a makeup sponge and just be sure that you tap out as much as you can before you put more on here. You want to keep going until it is done, and then you want to go on to your other butterfly, and of course you want to do the same thing. Just adding and tapping off, just like this. All right. Love it. This is easy. It goes by pretty quickly. And then after that's dried, we're going to flip them over to the back side and take the dowel, take them outside and spray paint them black. And then I'm going to grab my paint. And always be sure you clean your surfaces when you get them from the thrift store or garage sale or out of your closet. Take all the dust and grit off first, for many, many reasons. And then sand if you need to sand any areas, and then go over it with your paint. Then you get a smooth, nice, pretty finish. So I'm going to go over this entire thing. I'll go on the inside of that lip. You can see what I'm doing. And I'm not using a lot of paint to do this because it's already black. I just want to make sure that I can see the shine or the wetness of that paint on there so that I know all surfaces are covered and it is completely one black color. Set that aside and let it dry. Then we're going to cut into that foam. Now the size of that hole in the middle is about the size of a nickel. So I'm just going to kind of think about what that size might be and just trim down a piece of this foam to go in the middle. It's like a spongy, compact type foam, you know, that you get in packaging. I save that stuff. I sure do. No, I'm not a hoarder. But you might think that if you saw my studio. You might think it. So I'm going to press it down in there. And at first I thought, okay, well, this will work. So then I started adding my black paint to it, and it occurred to me, this is not going to hold the weight of what I'm going to be doing here. So let's add one more layer. And luckily, this candle lid fit right down in that lip, which always makes me very happy when something works like that, because it makes it the best template to put something in there. I've got a marker, and I'm going to just trace that out. And once I have that circle the right size, I'll go back over that with my scissors and just trim that completely out. Easy to do, and I still have more foam to use for later because I worked in the corner and I didn't waste anything. I'll just go around the outside of it. This can be compressed, so I could squeeze it down if it's too big, but I try to get as close as I can to it. So a little bit of the hot glue. Cool is best when you're using hot glue on foam. And then I'm going to paint this black. Now that's going to give me extra depth for me to put that dowel rod into. Make sure that it's dry, but keep your dryer very far away from it because it will shrink if you don't. I shrunk mine down, by the way, but I'll fix it. All right, so the back is dry, the front is dry. Now we're going to start adding a little bit of aging to this butterfly. Let's put the mystery back into it. Let's put the haunted back into the haunted house, or the, you know, the mystery back into your Victorian aged home. Okay? Is this Valentine's? I certainly do think it is. And in the end of this, you're going to see why I definitely would consider this Valentine. However, you could use this in your home anytime you would like. If you love the Gothic or the Victorian or the dark academia, I think any of these projects that we're doing today would really fit in nicely. See the difference that the aging makes? And that is just that black, that rich express, the rich black, I mean. But you see the difference of the two. Okay, so if you don't like the aged look, you can leave it bright like that. All right, so let's age this bottom, this pedestal, or whatever we want to call this thing. Again, start light. That's what I'm doing here. We're starting light. And I'm adding that paint on a little bit at a time. Not putting a ton on there. This just gives to me a bronzy look. I've done this on several projects. If you're new to my channel and you haven't seen my Halloween, then I really suggest that you go over and check out some of my Halloween videos, because I do a lot of the dark romance and the dark academia, the dark look that I think you might like as well. And they'll fit nicely together with these pieces we're making today. So if you did those, these will work well with them, I think. I'm going to go all around my edges and all around the different layers, because you see there are levels on here. Very pretty. And then we'll do the same technique to the dowel rod that we took outside and spray painted. So, you know, you can do the technique on spray paint if you would like. And they match great. This is going to look like one piece. So the last step on our butterfly, once the other aging part is done, is to add a little bit of bronzing. Well, it's not the last step. I actually do go back in and do something to the center of the butterfly, like I said. But we're going to do the bronzing first. And I'm just putting this all over very lightly on both of the butterflies. But you can go lighter or darker. But you know, butterflies have that little bit of a shimmer, a metallic shimmer to the wings. It's just that magical, beautiful look, you know? I'm going to very lightly go over the black part of the body. Then I'm going to grab that red again. And this time, I'm going to use a brush to go right next to the body and then make one line, and we're going to blend that out into the wing. We're just going to drag the remainder of that out into the wing. This gives like a highlight to the middle of that butterfly. It just gives it a pretty look, in my opinion. Then when it's dry, if you want to go back in and add a little bit more, you can, just to keep it looking, you know, consistent throughout. Oh, it's so pretty. All right, so now we're going to sandwich this dowel rod right in between. And we're going to do that with some hot glue. So I'm just going to put some hot glue in there. I don't want this to be so much that it floods out into the openings there or the cutouts. I don't want that to happen. But I'm trying to make it somewhat centered, because this is going to be, again, sandwich in between. We're going to add some more glue here. And then I'll flip it over right on top. So the red sides are out, the black is toward the center. Then I'm just going to use 2 more pieces of the same size dowel rod to hold those wings apart, so that I make sure that it stays centered and that it rises exactly where we want it to be. After putting some weight by my hand, I put a weight in the middle of it. After that glue has set up, give it a few minutes. Then this is how the beautiful butterfly is going to look. I love this. I love it. So now let's address the bottom. We got to have a way to stand that butterfly up. So I'm just using a little awl that I have, or it's a leather punch. I'm going to put it straight down in the middle. It's going to go through both layers of the foam that we added. I'll add some glue here. And then I will put that dowel rod straight into there. Now I could sit here and hold it until it dried if I chose to do that, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to show you that what I did was took a piece of wire, I went through the butterfly openings in the center and wrapped it over the monopod that holds my camera. So this is going to hold that in place as it dries while we continue to work on the project. All right, I'm going to add some hot glue here. You can see that it'll wiggle back and forth, but it is not going to come loose. I've got some of these flat rocks from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to add these black stones to the bottom of it. A couple of things these black stones are going to do besides looking pretty is they are going to help hold this in place. It's going to give us a little more of a support. It's also going to give us some little nooks and crannies to add some greenery or flowers into, and it will support those as well. You can choose whatever you like for this. If you want to add moss here, add your moss. If you want to put if you want to just leave it black and not use anything to support it, just sit there and hold it for a while, you can do that. You can take rocks that are not black. You could take the little shards of crystals or the raw crystal pieces, and you could put those there. You could use a lace doily if that's what you want to go for. All right, so I've built it up just a little bit, and look at these gorgeous roses. Now these came from TEMU. Again, I'm getting a lot of stuff from TEMU, y'all. I am. Everybody has their opinions. We don't need to discuss it, but I'm just showing you what the quality. These only cost me like $1.99 for the stem. That's right. Look how gorgeous these roses are. They're beautiful, and they are perfect for a dark romance theme, right? Perfect. They've got that red, they have that aged look, and they just fit in so nicely. They are on a wire, so the quality is definitely there. I'm going to cut it into pieces like you've seen me do here. And I'll also cut some of the greenery, and I'm going to cut the little part that connects to the stem. And I'm going to start adding these down to the cracks in those rocks. Again, it makes a great support, holds them in place. And then also it has that look, that black look, that the darkness. I think it works so well together. And I've never done it quite like this, but I love it. I hope you love it. I hope you think that this works together. It really does, in my opinion. Maybe you could use black sand here. Maybe if you're using something that's in your yard, you could just go grab a handful of stones and spray paint them black. You know, you could do that, couldn't you? So I'm just going to add the greenery pieces for the roses just here and there where I feel like they fit in and they look nice. And I'm going to make sure that I have like a graduated look. So we'll have our highest flowers, then we'll have a middle height, and then we'll have the shortest one. And so the little single rose is going to be the shortest, and I'll add that in. And I'm actually holding it longer. I cut out those pieces so you don't have to watch me do that. But I do hold it longer and add more rocks as needed for support. Still gives a natural look, Very pretty. I'm even going to add a little bit of greenery to the back of one of the other flowers. I love the look. Very pretty look. Okay, now I just decided, you know what? We need to have some sticks or some limbs or something in there to look craggy and look a little bit older, right? So I've got some of this. I pulled this out of a wreath that I thrifted, and I'm just picking the pieces apart. I'm just cutting them. They are plastic and wire, so they'll work good for this. But just grab some sticks out of your yard, you know? I'm going to cut it into pieces and then add these pieces here and there to give it just that little something extra, that little something aged and beautiful. Plus, y'all know I love my greenery. You know that on my channel. I love the greenery. And although there is no greenery on the stem, there's something about the movement that this gives. Just as a whole. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's maybe the artist in me coming out, but sometimes I can't convey it as well as I mean to. But look at the difference. Just that little bit. So here's our dark romance, our dark and moody, beautiful Valentine romance. So we got roses for Valentine's Day. We got the red coloring in there. We also have the black and the bronze and the deep red that give us that beautiful dark look. I mean, look at her. That's a showstopper right there. That is beautiful. That would look so beautiful in a bedroom, I think. And you could use these all year long if you chose to. I wonder which one of these is your favorite. And do you think you'll be trying one of these on your own? Look at those beautiful amber lights. When the lights are off, those things are stunning. They really are. Take my word for it, they are. The first project is going to be a Cupid wreath. I've got these little tags that I thrifted that say love, and they're wood. We're going to, of course, need paintbrushes because you know we got to paint something. I'm going to use this beautiful champagne gold paint. This beautiful little card. I know I said beautiful too much, don't I? Beautiful little card that is part of a banner that I got from TEMU. Not sponsored, not sponsored. I'm gonna choose a couple of blue ribbons that I think might work. And then I have some random, some of these are thrifted, some of these are purchased, and these are just some florals that match what's going on in that beautiful card. Okay, beautiful. I've said it 3 times and we're not even 1 minute to the video. Yes. Lovely roses that I got from TEMU. The quality is wonderful in these. Look at that. And then this I got on clearance somewhere. I think at Joann. Yeah. And you can pull all these individual pieces out of here or cut them off. And then another one of these wreaths. Now I did one at Christmas with the same type of greenery that I changed the color up a little bit. I have several more of these left, so you will be seeing these wreaths again. Just giving you an idea of the measurements, 8 and 16. And then we've got the fluff, of course. Everything needs to be fluffed. These were stacked on top of one another and kind of mushed down. We're going to take these beautiful little, there's another one. We're going to take these love letters and we are going to paint those gold. Now I gave 3 coats of this because I wanted it to be very noticeable. I could have stained these first, maybe done a dark brown and then did the gold over the top. But as I was building up the color, I just kind of watched to get it at the look that I wanted. So 3 coats was enough for me. And you could still see the wood grain a bit underneath, but you know, that's pretty. And I love rustic, so it works for me. We're going to do all those and let them dry. And while they're drying, we're going to address the little card here. And I've got a scrap piece of paper underneath. This is cardstock. And then another piece of, I think this is, this came from a paper pack, the blue with the words on it underneath. Don't even know what the words say, but I like the color and I think it matches well. So I'll use my double stick tape. You can use whatever adhesive you would like. to put this card down on top of the sort of an old gold colored cardstock. But it really matches well with the aged look. So I think this was a good choice. Of course, use whatever you like. If you don't have a banner from TEMU, what can you do? Well, you can go get a card that you like at Dollar Tree or at another store. Or perhaps you've been sent a card in the past and you've been hanging on to it. What a great way to get that card back out that you love so much. Give it a little more attention. Give it new life. So if you have a corner rounder and you have a round picture, all you have to do is clamp it and kind of snap the edges. I don't have a corner rounder anymore. I did back in my scrapbook days, but I donated most of that stuff. So I don't have one. So I'm just going to go with it, just looking at it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to offset it with the blue in the background, and look at the difference. I love it. Now, of course, I'm going to be cutting off all of these. They're kind of leggy, I guess you could say, and I need these to be in shorter, more manageable pieces to use in a wreath. And actually, I left these a bit too long. I do cut these in half, each one of these. So what if you have a flower that's kind of crumpled? Well, you can add a little heat to it, turn it upside down, essentially steam or iron it out. Don't get it too close to your greenery because, you know, some things are plastic and they'll melt. But look at that. We woke that flower right back up. Now, I started off cutting these because I thought they needed to be cut, but I was reminded in my head that most of these are put together by just wrapping that brown papery looking stuff over them, and you can just simply pull them out. Do what you need to do to get yours apart. Now, I am not going to have this right in the center. I want it off to the side, so I'm just going to put my little pipe cleaners on one side. I'm using green because it's going to blend in a little better with the greenery on the wreath. And I'll just cut one in half and we'll make some little hanger pieces to attach the paper down to the wreath. If you want to attach yours straight down on your wreath, you can certainly do that. Feel free to make it your own. That's what this channel is all about. But in my experience, putting hot glue on something thin and plastic, like the greenery that happens to be on this wreath, it's not silk, it's like a plastic sort of situation. It'll just melt that and it'll come off anyway. So doing it this way, I can attach down to the wreath form that is underneath the brown part, and it'll stay right where it needs to be. Now that this is dry, I want to put these pieces together. See how you can still see the wood grain underneath, but it kind of has that shimmer in the light. Really pretty. And I like the idea of stacking these one on top of the other, almost graduated. And so I'm just going to use jute because it blends in. It doesn't, you know, get a lot of attention, and I want the attention to be on the word. So I'm just going to tie this in 2 knots where I connect each piece and then cut off that little section right there that we don't need. Y'all, somehow in the process of cleaning and rearranging in my studio, and I mean it is a huge difference down there, thanks to my daughter who has been doing a lot of work down there, I have lost 2 pairs of scissors. I mean 2 scissors, and they're the ones that are the smaller ones that I can use to actually do small things. Can't find them. Want to say thank you really quickly also to the members of this channel who have made it possible for me to buy the microphone that I'm using today. It is new. I just installed it last night, so hopefully we have a good crisp sound. I would love to know your opinion in the comments below if it sounds better to you today. All right, so we've got the next one ready. We're going to keep going along here. And I just showed you a moment ago how you can fix the end if your string or whatever you're using starts to fray. A little hot glue, you can fix that. All right, so to hang it off of the wreath, because again, we're not hot gluing, we're going to hang it. I just chose to use another piece of this jute to just tie off both ends. And then that's what we'll use to attach it to the wreath. And then since we put double knots in between each one, I'm going to continue with that same look by just putting a double knot here. And now I think that is precious. We're just going to set it aside and we can put down our sweet little Cupid or angel, however you want to look at it, but it's a Cupid to me. Sending love. See how he's sitting on those little hearts? Oh, it's so cute. He's precious. Now I'm going to attach it to the wreath form underneath, which is that brown part, the original circle before the greenery. And I'm not going to pull it too tight because it'll sink down in and squish our greenery, and I don't want that to happen. So now I'm going to find placement, and it almost looks like the little Cupid's looking down at the love sign, right? I think that is adorable. So I'm just going to go behind him. Same thing, I'm going to kind of attach it, try to get it attached to a solid piece down there. And I'll just tie it in a double knot. Same thing over here. And I'm not too concerned. You're going to make a gap sometimes in your greenery when you're tying it on, but you can always refluff it. That's such a simple thing. Y'all, I encourage you not to give up on your work when you get started and you hit a bump. I mean, there are happy accidents, and you just go with it. You just go with it. I've got another boo-boo in here that you're going to see close to the end of the video, and I'm going to show you how I rolled with it. I didn't even cut it out. Just rolled with it. All right, now to keep everything locked in place, I just added a little dot of glue, and I still managed to knock it loose, so I'll fix it again later. Okay? Now, we always use clamps when we don't have enough fingers or hands to hold something, so we're going to keep going. I've torn these pieces apart, and since this wreath has that look of all the greenery going in one direction, I'm going to continue that same look with these little wispy pieces. And I chose these, one, because they're very pretty. It's the only pick I could find when they were on clearance at Joann. And it kind of reminds me of what's going on in the feathers on the back of the Cupid. So I thought it fit in very well with this project. You know, you don't have to use as much stuff as I do. I'm always going to just put a whole bunch in there. I like to show you step by step, and then, you know, just tell you too that you can stop at any point that you want to stop on your projects. Just because I do a lot and have a lot going on, that's just my preference. But I encourage you to do as much or as little as you like. These videos are for inspiration, and I just want to show you what you can do, right? Always make it your own. Okay, so now I'm going to take these peach colored roses, and I'm going to turn the greenery to make sure that for the most part we're looking at the front of the greenery and not the plastic backing. Sometimes there's really not much you can do short of just gluing it down, but I'm just going to kind of go with it and move as much forward and toward the front as I can, because I like that dark green color and I like the print. These are just very well done. So I want the best part of them to be forward, right? Just like when we're dressing ourselves and we're getting ready to go out and do something, we want to put our best foot forward. So that's what I'm doing here, of course, on my crafts. Now, I love these all together. They almost look like a bunch of roses. Rather than cutting them apart and separating them, we're going to leave them all together. That's a little bouquet, right? Then I'm going to take these pieces, and I'm just going to place them here and there. And then they're so big, there's enough underneath for me to take those pieces that are underneath and pluck them off and use them in another place. And you'll see me do that shortly. I'm going to add these beautiful blue flowers. And then I've got some more blue over there that I grabbed up that's really small that I found later. And we're going to add those in there shortly. I went ahead and added the greenery that we had from the blue flowers in there as well. And you can move things around. See, these are not glued down, so that makes it convenient. It gives it a little more options for you. See? A little more option. And by the way, if you're wondering why the longer pieces don't, why you see me just poking them in there, they're going into the wreath form that is underneath. So for the new folks and the new crafters, they're going into the wreath form under there. You can actually fit the wires down in there. So that's where they're going. And then for the pieces that are on plastic or look like they are shorter and can't be fed through there, I'll add a little hot glue and glue them in like the one I just did. Now I'm taking these little beautiful flyaway pieces of, we're going to call these wildflowers, and I'm going to just tuck them in here, there, continuing along with the beautiful blue that we already have going on in the project. And then underneath the edge, we're just going to carry this down and add some more of these little blue pieces here in front of the love and at the corner of the print, and leaving enough space in the middle that I can build up some of those yellow pieces. And I can just add as many or as few as I want to over here until I get the look that I like. Now that's much better. I like that. Now I'm just going to kind of weave them in and out. I'm going to kind of glue some things in place because for whatever reason, the glue did not play well with the paint that I used. So, you know, it would have worked with chalk paint. Now let's move on to the bow. I decided to use the sheer. So I've got the sheer bow, or the ribbon, and I've got about, it's over 2 feet of ribbon for sure. And I'm just going to make a very simple bow in my hand. You can see how I did that. You can go back and rewind and slow it down if you would like to. Then I'm going to tie it off with a little bit of jute because the jute is what I have available. So that's what I'm going to use. And then I'm going to take another piece that is about 4 inches longer than that one. I'm going to make the exact same bow, only it's going to be a little bit bigger. This ribbon holds a bow beautifully. It is wired. You're going to want to use wired for this. Then I'm just going to pull it down. And of course we need to finish our ends. We don't want any raggedy frayed ends. So I'm just cutting them in a slant. You can do a dovetail or, you know, whatever you like here. I'm going to take another piece about, I think I took what was left on the spool, I do believe. And I'm just going to fold it in half. So this looks like about 18, maybe 24 inches. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to fold it over. And then we're going to use this strip to go right in the middle. It's going to cover the jute and it is going to firmly attach it to the brown part of the wreath underneath. So I'm just tucking it in there, pushing it through with my fingers. And once I get it back there, I'll pull it up and then I'll tie it in a double knot. And then you can cut off any excess you might have in the back, or you can just leave it there. I'm going to fluff the bow because, you know, you got to fluff those bows. And then try to give a little personality to the ribbon. You decide, do you want it to flip up? Do you want it to flip down? Do you want to just have it swag down, or do you want to make a curl in it? There's so many options with bows. But, you know, do it your way and the way that you like it. And this is the final result, but you will get a better look at the very end of the video. Our next project is going to be a set of 2 decorative plates. We're going to use 2 types of Mod Podge. One of these is a gold glitter Mod Podge, and this one is a dishwasher proof Mod Podge. I have a brush that I got with my Mod Podge, of course. And then these are 2 plates that I have thrifted. One of them is from Hobby Lobby, and the other one, I don't know where that one was from. This came from a TEMU paper pack, and it's like a scrapbook paper pack. And I've got lots of pretty options. This is another piece from that banner. Put your spectacles on, right? And then I'm going to cut this out, especially since I can't find my small scissors. I don't know. I don't know. If my daughter's watching this video, where are my scissors, girl? Where are my scissors? I do have a little crafter in my house too, and she also likes to use my things. So I may have to look over there on her table and see if she took my small scissors. All right, so I'm just going to cut out the little boy here with his Valentines, and I am going to put him on top of this scrap cardboard. It came out of some things that I had ordered to improve my channel this year. So I saved those pieces. I love to use those as backing and just for anything. You can just use them for anything. With hot glue, you need to be sure that you work quickly to press that out so you get no lumps or ridges underneath. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want him to have a little more weight and structure. I want it to be where it's not bendable and it's a little easier to work with. I'm going to use my finger sander and I'm going to go over the entire thing. This is going to get any little roughness, or it's going to smooth the edges, I guess is an easy way to say it. It's going to smooth the edges and it will go through paper. After I have done that, I'm going to get my finger dauber and I'm going to get a little bit of wax, and see there's a little scrap of that cardboard. Just going to dot it off, and I'm going to go around the edges. Now you can see that the edges are kind of white when you first sand them. You can go back over them with a little bit of darkening. See there the difference? This is going to make it really stand out so much better. It's going to give a defined edge and really make it pop. So I like doing this, and you're going to see this a lot in this video. I'm going to show you how to age things. Give you a lot of options in the video. Okay? You could always take a marker if you don't have, you know, some aging wax of some sort. You can always do the edges with a marker, but you're not going to get that look of shading around the edges without this wax, or with some, maybe some brown paint that you water down. Wax is just such a good, it's just, I encourage you, if you're going to be cheap on everything else, or frugal, please spend the money and get you some antiquing wax, especially if you watch my channel, because I use it all the time. Okay, so we're going to let that little boy dry. I'm going to take advantage of the little holes in the sides of these plates, and I'm going to use this ribbon that I have, and this is thrifted ribbon, or possibly was given to me. Now see, sometimes I can't remember correctly, because I have had several ladies give me large amounts of ribbons and crafting supplies. That's where the wreath came from, the wreath form, several of those. I've got a lot of things from other folks, so this may have come from one of them. But I'm just weaving that in and out, using a stick to help me go down in the holes if you're not able to get your fingers in there. If it flips over, just flip it back, look at the back of it, make sure everything is, you know, good. Then I'm just going to make a very simple bow right here. If you don't have the dexterity and you have pain or vision problems, leave that string longer, make your bow, and then trim it off. Well, you got a little more room to work, right? I'm just slanting the little details just a little bit, not anything major, just a little slant here, and I'm going to try to push that out of the way while we work on this little heart going in the middle. It is bigger than the inside circle, so we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to put it down with these little pop-up squares. You can get something similar to this at Dollar Tree. We're going to peel the little backs off, and then I'm going to try to center it underneath the bow, and then press right over where those foam squares are to hold it in place. He is a cutie pie. We don't very often get to see little boys, so I really wanted to kind of feature them, you know, give them a little space today. If you want to hang this on the wall rather than sitting on a plate stand, you can just take a piece of wire, and I've cut a little piece here. I'm going to go in and out in the same space below where that bow is. You won't even be able to see it in the front. The ribbon will go right down over it. Then I'm going to cross my two pieces over, twist them around. You can trim them off, and then just keep them low down to the plate where it's not very noticeable, and you'll be able to use that on your wall. What I'm going to do, in case you're worried about scratches on the wall, is pull that back through so that it goes under the ribbon on the front and the smooth side is on the back. You could also use maybe some command hooks on the inside of your secretary, or anything that you might have that you put your decor on. Maybe you showcase your decor on, and you could use a little command hook on the back and then hang this right off the wall of your little shelving or your cabinetry. All right, for the second one in this set, we are going to use the bigger plate. I'm just going to use this as a template. You see it fits perfectly down in there, and I'll use it to go on my piece of paper. I'm going to take a pencil and lightly go around on the white side of the paper, because I can see it and I don't have to worry about it showing if I go over the print. And I'm just going to cut right over the line. Oh, that's so pretty. I love the look of this. Crafting magic, y'all. All right, we're going to put some of that dishwasher Mod Podge on here. Now, the dishwasher safe Mod Podge is the option I chose for this, not because I intend to put it in the dishwasher, no, but because in my experience, it is very thick. It will cling to what you're using quickly, and you don't have to worry about any bubbling or lines underneath. That's just my experience. but you do what you need to do. So you could actually use regular Mod Podge. Just be sure that you squeegee it out really well. I'm trying to hold it so I don't get it sliding around because I put a good coat in there. And I'm just going to use a little silicone spatula. Y'all, if you do not have fancy tools, go get something from the kitchen section. Silicone is great. It's easy to clean up. It's flexible. It's wonderful. I'm just going to use a heat tool, and I'm going to go over here and give it a quick dry. But you can put yours aside and let it dry if you like. I'm going to put this down on another piece of the cardstock, or the cardboard rather, but this time I'm going to attach it down with that same Mod Podge because it was already in the brush. See, options, y'all. You have options. Put it down in here. I'm going to press it down. I'm just lining it up on the edges. That's what I'm doing. And then I'm going to just use my little spatula here and support it with my finger and just squeegee it all out from the inside to the outside, pressing it down into that glue. It does take a second or two to attach to the glue, but just, work with it. And then I'm adding a little heat to it to make it dry quicker. If you don't have this, you can use a blow dryer. If you don't, you can use a fan. You could always set it aside, walk away, take a coffee break, right? Or get some water. We need more water this year. I drink a lot of coffee. Now I'm going to cut each one of these out because they're like individual little pictures. And then I'll be choosing just a few of these. And then some I'll be putting aside for the next Valentine's video that I'm putting out. Then I'm going to darken and age these just like you saw me do before. All around the edges because you sand these off if you need to. If not, you still got your cut marks and you want your edges to blend. The white part of the paper and the brown part in the back will look the same or barely be noticeable if you do this. Now I'm going to bring that toward the inside just a little bit to just age around the edges, and you can clearly see the difference there. It's almost like you're putting a shadow around the edge. Kind of mimics what's going on in those cards we used. Okay, and this is how this one's going to look. Now the plate is dry, so we get to start having a little bit of fun. I'm going to shake this Mod Podge up because it's glitter in there and it will get kind of clumpy. My preferred method is a sponge brush for this because you can pounce it on instead of using a brush, which will, in my experience, rub it right back off. So I'm just going to pounce this on all over my edges because I want this one to really have that beautiful shimmer or sparkle on it. Now, y'all, this is very fine glitter. This is not something that's over the top crazy. It's not. And once it dries, it's just it almost gives it like a gold leaf effect. But judge for yourself. And if you don't like it, you don't have to do it on yours. Right? And I'm just going to go over the edges of the cards once they're dried and just give them a little bit of that gold too. You see just a little shimmer. It's really pretty. All right. And now I'm going to go on the inside and just give it a little bit. You're not going to really see a whole lot of what's going on under here because it's going to be covered. I've got two old ribbons or vintagey looking ribbons, one in a gold and one in a beautiful dusty pink, or I think in the 90s, what did we call that? A dusty rose. Beautiful, and it is sheer, so I'm going to use both of them, but there are 2 rows of little openings in this plate, so this is the perfect opportunity to use both, to use 2 ribbons. I'm going to pull a bunch out. I'm going to get a little stick here, and I don't know if this is a craft stick or a coffee stirrer stick. I don't know. I get so much from the thrift store that's not even in a package that I just scrape up off the bottom of the bin, and if it looks like I could use it for crafting, I'm going to bring it home. But the good news is I share a lot of stuff, if that helps. Okay, now, once we get back around, you can see we've got our 2 pieces here. I'm going to overlap one underneath the other one so they both come out the same spot. This is just to make it easier when we hang it. Now I'm going to start with the gold. And again, if your ribbon flips over, all you have to do is go to the back, use your little stick or whatever pokey tool you're using, and flip it back over. Easy. And I wouldn't stress about it anyway. It's still pretty. You're still getting a representation of that color, right? Not everybody has 20/20 vision. I'm straining to see my screen right now as we speak. Because I'm not wearing my glasses. They're in the car. And they should be on my face. But that's another story. Got to get back to the eye doctor. Y'all, we've got to take care of ourselves in 2024. I have let too many things fall by the wayside. I'm about to get myself back in shape. Who's with me? All right, so once you get back around, I'm just going to go ahead and tie this one in a knot. And then I'm going to tie this one in a bow. Easy bow. This is an easy little bow. But leave your strings longer if you need a little more to work with while you're doing your projects. So I'm wondering, does anybody use a magnifier when they're doing their crafting, like the kind that attaches to the table? I'm thinking about getting something like that. Let me know what you think if you've ever worked with one, what your experience was. Okay, so now the fun part, we get to arrange these on the plate. I get to decide right where I want to put these. And it's really it's sort of like scrapbooking. You just see what works. And I love an offset look. I love the look of something having dimension on it. It's different. You don't see everybody do this. And that's what makes things special, right? And it creates that extra shadowing in the background. So before you know exactly where you want your pieces to be, kind of lay them out and get an idea of what you think you might like. Then you can press them back right where they're right where you would like for them to be. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so now I'm just gonna tack those down to the edges and then add a little glue underneath. It will stick well to the ribbon underneath, so that's what I'm aiming for. Oftentimes hot glue will pop right off of a shiny surface like that plate. I have a little card here, and I'm just gonna pop off the little extras and add them here and there because they have a little gold edging. You can do this with the 3D card. You know, you can do this. And think, you buy one pack of cards, one pack of thank you cards, and you get all the extras. Now, mine came from the thrift store, but, you know, think outside of the box. You could also cut up a card, or you could drop it like I always like to do. Or you could use stickers. There are puffy stickers and 3D stickers at Dollar Tree that are gorgeous that you could use. Look at this. I really like this. I really like it a lot, and I think the two of these plates together make a very nice look. Okay, so now you can hang it with your ribbon if you would like to, or you could use a piece of wire, and this is just the edge off of a wired ribbon that I deconstructed. I'm going to make a loop in the end. I'm going to pull it so there's a little knot, and then I'll feed it through the same hole where the hanger is. You can just cut that little ribbon down, cut the little tails off like I did. And then you have a little gold hanger, and then you can hang it from the wall. Either way is good. The next project is going to be Cupid with roses. So I pulled this off of a Christmas greenery piece that had all kinds of red and green and gold on it. Pulled it off because I knew that these beautiful dark roses were going to be perfect for Valentine's Day. Multi-purpose, y'all. Christmas stuff, some things can go right on over. I thrifted the little cherub. This came off of one of my candles. This is a piece of scrap foam. And this is a little candlestick that I have used before in another project. We're going to use a different shade of gold. This is glorious gold with a cup and a chippy brush. All right, right now I've got my little Lazy Susan. We're going to put it under there just to kind of help me out. It's going to keep my table clean and make it easier when I'm turning this. Okay, you see how much I just loaded into the brush and then wiped off? That's all I'm going to use for a great portion of this. It looks really heavy right now, but what you're seeing is me just putting the paint onto it. I'm not leaving it this look. This is going to be me brushing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all over this, underneath the lip, the edge, everywhere. Then I barely add any more paint to the upper section. Okay, now I'm going to add some paint onto this top, does not have to be perfect. Most of this you are not going to see, but I'm going to color it gold. And be sure you go the edges also. And then I'm going to add some E6000 once that's dried and some hot glue to the top of this candlestick. And then we will apply this right on top of that candle top. That hot glue is going to grab fast. It's going to hold it in place until that E6000 is dry. And look at that. It practically looks like it belongs there. All right, I'm going to use some of my mounting tape here. You can get this at Walmart. You can get it at Dollar Tree. It's alien tape, I think, at Walmart. I mean, not Dollar Tree. At TEMU is where I get mine. I found it fairly inexpensive there, so that's where I usually get mine. Then I'm going to go over it with some hot glue. Hot glue will eat away at your foam, so it needs to be something a little more permanent. Be sure that you really push it down into it, and then it is practically centered. We've got to find a way to stand this little cherub up. I'm going to add some hot glue on a pick that I have cut at a slant so it will fit right under the wings. I'm going to cut the stick down a little because I know I don't need all of that. Not quite sure the height yet, but I know I don't need all of it. I'm going to trim it down a little bit more. Yes. Oh, y'all, this is not for the faint of heart. I had to add a little glue right to his bum to hold it in place at the right angle. Okay, and that is Gorilla Glue. And the glue gone. All right, so now I'm going to find his placement and I'm going to stand him up in that foam. Stand him in it, push his little toes into it. I'm going to go around this with a little bit of ribbon because if you don't, you might be able to see through your greenery and then you'll be able to see this white foam. You could start by simply using a green foam if you have that instead. This is my way of disguising it a bit, although most of my flowers do cover it. Now I've pinned it in rather than gluing it with a floral pin. And I'm going to take my roses, which I have put back together and added a little piece of scrap stem to, and I'm going to shove them through this meshy ribbon right in the front. Okay, and we're going to do 4 of these, so I'm trying to space these out evenly around the foam. Add 2 more, and then the last one here. Now, we are going to be adding the single roses that don't have greenery, and we're going to add those in between and above where we added the ones with the greenery, which is in the foam at the top, right around that cute little cherub or cupid or angel baby or whatever you want to call him. And there will be 4 of those, so far we have 8 roses. Mine are thrifted, like I said, but feel free to pick some up at Dollar Tree or wherever you have them. Or perhaps you'd like to use a different flower. I just thought this is beautiful for Valentine's Day. I have 1 piece left that I'm going to cut in 3 sections, and I'll be using this to add here and there to pop out of our flowers so that it doesn't look so flat. I feel like doing these things makes a little more of a natural look. See, now we can cover up the stick on the back. Then I'm going to turn him to each side to decide where we want the last piece to go. And then adding a little hot glue, we can place that in there. Now I want to add a bow to this. Now this is a little simple bow like we did before. So if you've mastered the other one, this is the exact same thing, but we're doing it with gold meshy ribbon. I'll flip it over and just tie it in the middle. And this is just a little scrap of ribbon. And I'm going to tie this around the candlestick in a place where it is seen, but close enough up top that you could actually give something like this as a gorgeous Valentine's gift. I know I'd love to have it. I surely would. I think handmade gifts are so sweet and so thoughtful because of the time and the effort that you put into it. You know, I love it. And I think in crafting, we show a little bit of our personality in the way we craft, and it just makes it special. But I know not everybody likes a handmade gift. But I sure do. All right, so I'm putting slants here. I know you can't see down there, but it's okay. And I'm also going to show you how you can kind of give it a little something extra by making little tails. So these are like faux tails. I'm going to cut like an 8-inch piece, and I'm going to cut a slant. This is just it doubled over, and I've cut it in a slant. I'm going to pinch it on the bottom. Hinch. I said pinch. My country's coming out. Country has come to town. Yeah. I'll make a couple of these and add, and you'll see it at the end. The next is going to be a heart sign. Love this one. So of course we're going to use our antiquing wax and a chippy brush. Another one of those beautiful banner pieces. And then this is like a wallpaper strip. And this is a heart that somebody else already DIY'd. I believe you can get something like this at Dollar Tree that is completely plain and you don't have to worry about painting over or removing anything. I'm going to measure out on this wallpaper that is from TEMU. I'm going to measure out how much I need to cover it. And then I am going to just kind of trim off the rest of it because I like to get those things out of my way. I've removed most of the paper and I'm going to add this down. A lot of times you can see through these papers, so just be sure that you have a nice light background so you don't see a bunch of stuff underneath it, right? I'm going to start to peel up the backing. So you can see the print from the front through to the backing, so you know it's pretty thin. And I'm going to just take the heart and peel most of it off. I'm going to use, I think I put something on there to hold it. Yes, I did. Put a coaster on there. Just to give me an extra hand. See how I kind of walk my fingers off? And then I'll push this right where they connect. Drop it down, press it into place. It stayed nice and flat, thankfully. I'm just going to press it down a little bit and I'm going to cut off the excess. This does not have to be really neat. It doesn't have to be a very close cut because we are going to be sanding off the excess. It works well. Press it down with your hand, use a squeegee, use a credit card, use a spatula, something to get this flat where there are no bubbles and wrinkles in it. All right. Love the vintagey look of this. Already love it, but it's a little too... the color is not exactly how I like it, so I'm going to change that. But you see how easy this shears off? Just going down and away from it. You can pull that right off. Perfect. See the difference it makes from here to this side? Very defined. Now, I want to darken this up, of course, because I've got to give it more dimension. I don't want anything looking flat. I want it to look like it's truly something old. So I'm going to go around it with just a baby wipe, a damp baby wipe. This is going to make it easier for me to move it, and it will also give me a little extra time to play around with this wax before it sets up. So I'm going to go around all the way around the edges, all the way. I'm getting the very edge of the heart, plus I'm getting about an inch, maybe 1.5 inches toward the inside of it. As it starts to dry, I'll kind of blend inward. So I'm going inward in circular motions to get the color the way I like it. Now, when you're doing this with a baby wipe, if you get it too dark, you can quickly wipe it back off, right? I like the color of this. I think it looks good. See the difference? Yes. Now I'm just, because it's still damp, I'm just taking a chippy brush, a large one, and I'm just going to kind of play with that to give it almost a little bit of shaping. If you curve the brush, it puts the wax almost like, it's kind of hard for me to explain, y'all. Just take my word for it. But you can skip that step if you would like. Now I'm going to cut her out. I'm not going to leave the shading on her because we're doing something a little different. But she has a little foot down there. We want to make sure I don't cut her foot off. And I'm going to put her on that same piece of scrap cardboard we had. You see how convenient it is to have these scraps because we didn't have to buy it. And I've used it in several projects. Little hot glue. I'm going to get her placed down on here so that I can get it cut out. I'm going to do the same thing with the heart. And then I will cut around here. Preferably with some detailing scissors. But, you know. Then I'm going to take my finger sander and go all the way around. This is going to make the edges nice and smooth and make this look like one piece rather than a piece glued down to something else. Right? You can also cut apart a cereal box and use that if you would like to give it a little bit of extra weight. You certainly can. Now it's the same thing here. We're going to go all around the edging. We're going to cover up all the white, and we're going to make this look a little more aged. And don't forget the inner parts like the neck and things like that. Then I'm going to dry it. I have a little piece that came off of a Dollar Tree thing here. I peeled off the front of it, and I'm just going to paint it white, and we're going to make a little dimensional heart. Once I've got it painted, I'm going to add on some wax. Y'all don't panic. It looks definitely worse before it gets better. Again, I'm using a baby white because it makes it easier for me to blend. Okay, blending. Blend it well. You can see how much blending I did on it. See the difference when the paper heart comes off? I think the paper hearts might have come from Dollar Tree one year. I'm not sure. Using a glue stick is by far the easiest way, but you got to be very gentle with this. The purple will disappear. It just shows me where I put the glue. And now I'm just going to pat that down on there and gently use my finger to make sure that it is attached down. Add a little heat to it to glue it in place. And we want dimension here. So I'm going to just use a wood block on the back. You can use those building blocks from Dollar Tree if you want. And start playing around with how we want to position this. I want to add this little heart right to this one. This gives a lot of dimension in this heart. We got 3 layers in this heart, and I absolutely do love that. I'm going to take some little pieces of wood scraps that I have. They went to some type of a pop-up painting kit. I don't even know, but I keep these kind of things when I just keep them. I don't go overboard. I mean, it's not a crazy person's studio downstairs or anything. I have this stuff organized, okay? Believe it or not, it is organized. Organized chaos, still organized. I'm going to glue this right down on the back. And then I decided when I was doing this, you know what? This looks like a candy top, like a candy box top. So we're going to go with that and try to continue with that same look. Like this was a box of chocolates, right? Right? Couldn't this be so similar? So that's what we're going to make it. I'm just going to pull the wire right out of this wired ribbon. And I'm going to wrap it around. I pulled it out because it'll lay flatter. But you don't have to. You certainly don't have to. I'm going to do this at a slight slant. Why? Only because afterwards I realized it was not completely even. So we're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. We're going to say I intended for it to be that way, right? Yes. Now we can decide where we want things to be. And since I know I want to add a little bow somewhere on here, we're going to position her down a little bit, leaving some space for a bow. Her little skirt's kind of wispy and hanging off a little bit off the side. I love that. I love the dimension of it. And then because I used smaller blocks here, there's another layer of dimension. It's a little shorter, but still you can see the shadow around it. Now, very soon you're going to see a mistake. And let's focus on the good part. I'm going to make a 2-loop bow, and all I'm going to do is just loop this over. This is all I have left, so I'm trying to take advantage of it. And I'm just looping it over on itself. So there'll be 2 loops on the left, 2 loops on the right, and 2 tails. I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to cut through the wire. Just going to cut right through. It's going to bite through the wire and go right into the fabric. You don't want to go too far with this because your bows will fall apart. Same thing on this side. Some people call this an Olivia bow. Some people call this a notched bow. I do not know the original creator. There are a lot of opinions about that. We don't need to go into that here, do we? We don't. Now I'm going to put a piece of ribbon right in there. You can use a string for this. You don't have to use ribbon, or you can use a zip tie, whatever you prefer. I'm just working with what I have, what's on the table. It's kind of a long video, so I wanted to be sure that I give you all the details, but give you all the goodness. Right? You need the goodness. You need the inspiration. People have been asking me, where's my Valentines? Where's the Valentines? Where's the Valentines? I'm bringing it to you, y'all. I'm bringing it. And more than one. How about that? That's right. All right. So now I'm going to pull these apart. I'm going to pull these layers apart and, oh, bam. Pull the edge right off the ribbon. This is old ribbon. So I should have known to be a little more gentle, but I wasn't. But I'm thinking, okay, now what? Now what? This is the only piece I have left. So then I was like, you know what? Let's just pull all of those off. Let's just pull them off. And then it occurred to me, you know, you cut through the side, they can come completely out. Just pull every one of them out, and I did. Even off the tail part, I just pulled them off, went with it. And it still looks pretty, and it's still a stiff enough ribbon that it's going to hold the shape of the bow. Happy little accidents. Thank you, Mr. Ross. Now I'm going to cut my tails, just going to dovetail these pieces. You won't necessarily see these. It depends on the type of ribbon you're using. Sometimes you can see the tails on my bows and sometimes you can't. But just to be on the safe side, I want to do it now rather than trying to do it after it is glued in place. Alright, so now this is going to be the back of the bow. I'm going to take that one last piece of scrap that I had there, and I am going to fold it in half, and then I'm going to dovetail it. So now we have this little thingy, this little piece, and we're going to work with it. I'm going to add some hot glue on the back of the bow, and I'm going to squinchy this up in the middle, press it down in there, and then a little bit of that will show when you put the bow in place on the top and the bottom, and they look like little faux tails. Oh yes, this was definitely a happy accident. I'm going to add some hot glue here and press it into place right up toward that top. Oh yes. And now we're going to add some beautiful greenery on there. Yes, I said greenery, and I said beautiful again. I did. I'm going to glue this in place. This was just a scrap off of some other those little roses that I have there. I made sure when I chose those roses that they were in the same orangey red tone instead of a pinkish color, because this is definitely more of a different tone. And I'm going to put this down right on there. You could use a jewel, you could use a button, you could use anything you like in this spot. So far, so good. I'm liking it. You could definitely stop here if that's something that you would like to do. But I decided I wanted to add a little bit of gold to it. You don't have to do this, y'all. I know I be doing too much sometimes, as the kids say. As the young folks say, I be doing too much. But I'm just going to add some of this on here, and then I'm going to blend it out. I'm not going to leave those sharp edges. I'm going to pull all of that toward the center. That's just going to kind of concentrate the majority of the gold to the outside when it starts to get sticky and dry just a bit. But then I'm going to also go over her little shoe. We're going to make her a little patent slipper that she's wearing, and we're going to do some black on the band around her hat. Just a little something extra, y'all, you know, just that extra flair. I felt like coloring that day. Apparently, look how relaxed I looked. Just chilling out on the table there. Just going to trace that up. Very easy to do. And as I put the glue down, I'm kind of rubbing the tip of it in there. Be sure, by the way, if you're using a bottle paint like this, that you burp it first, like I did over there on the top of that used spool. Once I've gotten it blended out with my brush, I'm going to dry it, and we're going to make a hanger. And I'm just using a scrap piece of ribbon with a little glue in the middle, and I'm going to add it right in the top middle. I like that it has gold in it, and it also has kind of that brownish tone. And that's that. Here are those 5 brand new Victorian Valentine's projects that we made. And we included the little boys in this one, didn't we? We've got some reds and some pinks. And you see that little red bubble? If you would click that, you can subscribe to my channel. Give me a thumbs up, lets me know I'm doing a good job. I want you to believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Whether you're a new crafter or somebody who's been doing it forever, or somebody who took time to be off and now you're back at it. Feel inspired. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to my members, my viewers, and all of my subscribers for everything that you do that makes my channel possible. All of the support you give, the comments you leave, the shares, the likes, they matter, they mean something, you mean something, and you matter to me. The first little project is going to be a tricycle floral basket. I'm going to start off with this little floral basket. Looks like it came from Target originally. I've got some heart ribbon, some little heart ornaments, a pink and a red, some lace ribbon from Dollar Tree, And then this little hanging sign from Dollar Tree. There's that info. I have a block of foam and some picks. So I'm going to start off with this little basket by adding a little piece of cardboard in the bottom with a little bit of hot glue to keep the foam from falling all out on my table. I know how much I'm going to need to trim off, so I'm going to take my handy dandy knife here and just cut a chunk off. I would have used the other foam, but I'm running out, so this is what I had. This is what we're going to use. I'm going to take these little pieces of plastic picks and stick in here. There's no wire in this part, by the way. I'm just pressing it into the foam, which it will not stay, and hot glue will just beat up and not work. But I'll show you in just a moment how you're going to secure these down to that wet foam block. I'm just going to poke them into the foam for now, just getting their placement. And then I have these little pins, and I think you could probably get these any craft store. And they're, I think, floral pins or wreath pins, something like that. And I'm just going to press those down around where the little stem part meets the foam. And this is going to lock it in place so it doesn't go anywhere. Plus, when you pull this out and you want to reuse those pieces for something else, you don't have a gluey mess, and you can use your pins again. I'm going to continue to add around and use pins for the pieces that do not have a hard stem to poke down in here. If I didn't have these pins, I wouldn't be able to use this greenery, and I really like it. Valentine's is still in the winter, so we can definitely use evergreen for Valentine's core, I think. This is some boxwood. I'm going to be adding these in too, and they are actually on a hard a wire, so they'll stand up in there by themselves. I'm taking a longer piece to go in the middle because I want the top of my floral to be the tallest point, and then I'll just add in into the corners here and there, kind of going maybe one in the center and then one on each corner, that kind of situation. Work around until you have it looking as full as you like it. I'm just going to place them in, and then I'll be looking at this, picking it up and looking at it from all sides to make sure I don't have any bald spots in there. A couple more pieces of greenery that are on picks, and I'm just poking those down in there. Like so. I like a variety because it looks a little more wild to me rather than all one type of greenery. Then I'm going to choose 2 of these heart plaques off of here. They need to be 2 that will fit together back to back so I can make a double-sided sign. So I'm going to use this polka dot one, and then the welcome sign is the one I was going to use, but it doesn't fit flush. It's not the same size. However, this XO is perfect. Matches up perfectly. I'm going to use a little wooden stick here, and it's black. I pulled it out of something and I took apart. I don't even know what came out of, but it's not wire. It's actually a wooden stick. I'm going to make this almost like a sucker or a lollipop. Put this toward the bottom, as far down as I can get it, while still having some stability with it. I want it to be 2 functions, one to stand it up and one to make it look like a big old popsicle or sucker. I'll add some hot glue then and kind of sandwich it in between. And because this is like a hard papery type stuff, you can press it down towards almost flat. And if you have something flat that's sturdy, use that instead. So there is going to be a little gap in the bottom. That does not concern me. Also, because it's wood, I think it gives it kind of a cheaper look. I'm going to take some of my Christmas red. It's a beautiful red. And I'm going to, it's either Christmas red or cardinal, I'm not sure. You'll have to rewind and see. And then I'm going to go over all of my edges so that they kind of blend in and they don't stand out. And y'all all know how to paint. You don't need to see me do the entire thing, but you get the idea. Set it aside, let it dry. Now I'm just going to pick my foam up because it's not glued in there yet, move it out of the way, and I'm going to start embellishing the tricycle itself. I know that I want to use this ribbon in this project. It's all I had left from last year, and it's really pretty and delicate, and I just think it's precious. Precious, precious for this project. You can use any type of ribbon you have. You can use your own tricycle. You can use if you don't have a little tricycle like this, you can use a truck, a little red truck. whatever you have. You have a basket that's not a tricycle. You know, you just take the inspiration from it. So that's kind of what I'm giving you. I know not everybody's going to have this tricycle. And I can't fit it in a medium flat rate box, so it's not like I can send anybody any of them in a giveaway, which is shameful because I get such a good deal on these pieces when I get them at dirt cheap. I can get them for like 4 for $1, and this was a $3 or $4 piece. So I love those kind of deals. That's really probably better than thrifting them. Okay, so I'm just going to continue around with my hot glue so that it makes like a border or trim all the way around the top of the basket. You could also do the bottom of the basket if you would like. And to make sure that when you close off your ribbon or whatever you have there, that you trim it off nice and neat so you don't see any gaps or any misses in the pattern. And I think that looks good. And then I decided that it might be cute if we added a little bit of something extra to the handlebars up here. So I'm just going to take another piece of that ribbon, center it in the handlebar there and glue it down. And then I'll just go ahead and grab the hot glue and go around each little outside edge with my hot glue. You could probably use a different type of glue and just clamp it until it dries if you wanted to. But the hot glue works great for this. And it's going to be inside, so I don't have to worry about it falling apart. And I do also use Gorilla hot glue as much as I can. When I run out, I'll just use whatever I have, but I prefer the Gorilla glue. And I'm not sponsored, by the way. Okay, so far this is how it looks. Isn't that precious? Cute. Now I'm going to add some hot glue and go ahead and put my foam down. You can do this in whatever order you want. You could have glued it down and worked around it, but it just makes it a little more difficult if it's all in there, you know. You got to move things out of the way. So now I can decide where I want to put this sign because it is dry now. Decide how tall I want it. And I'm going to work on a bow. Now y'all have seen these bows before. It's the awareness tag and then you squish it in the middle. Then you have your 2 loops and your 2 tails. So very simple. So simple. This is wired ribbon. But if you make your bows small enough and you don't use a big bow, having wire doesn't necessarily make or break you. So just use whatever ribbon that you like and keep that in mind. If you're going to use a ribbon that doesn't have any rigidity, you're going to have to use, they're going to be floppy. So just keep that in mind. You may like that floppy, shabby chic look. That's okay too. So I'm just using my fingers to fluff out the little ears here or the little loops in the bow. And then instead of doing a dovetail, I'm just going to slant these bows or these tails. I can cut off the back here because I'm not going to need to tie anything on. I'm going to use a little bit of hot glue and just glue it right to the basket. So this is in the back of the basket and I'm just adding a little bow to the back. And I think that is a cute little finishing touch for the back part. I want to put another one of those bows up there on that little sign that we made, or the sucker, lollipop. Same process, only much tinier. If you have a hard time fluffing out your loops with your fingers when they get so small you can't use your finger in there, just use like a pencil or something and you can fluff it up with a pencil or a dowel rod. Just stick it in there and kind of flip them out just a little bit so it doesn't lay flat. Unless, of course, you're going for the flat look, and that's okay. Again, trimming off because we don't need that, but you could use your string to actually tie to there. If you needed to tie something on, you could. And you see I've cut those tails short. I'm going to trim them a little bit more. I don't want a lot of length on here. I just want this to be a little cutesy bow. I think that will work. I'm going to put it right on the top of the polka dot side of this sign and press it in place. This is how it's going to look, both sides, XOXO and the little polka dots. And I think it looks good with that red trim on it for sure. If your stem is too long, you can use cutters and just clip it off. I was trying to push through a piece of foam wire or something down in there, I think. But I got it. It worked. I'm going to take the red ornament because as doing this project, I decided that red would be more of the direction I went in. And I'm just going to use a little hot glue and glue it up there to the handlebars in the center, almost where a basket would be on a bicycle. And here's how she looks so far, but we're not quite done. Not quite. We're going to add some little red berries to this. These I pulled out of some stems. They had like a little bush and it had these little red berries all over it. I'm going to use these little red berries by themselves and just poke them here and there all over the basket. I think the berries give the perfect touch of red without being too much, and I love the deep color of that red. It's really pretty. It gives that little extra something to the greenery because it's not springtime. I don't want to add a bunch of flowers in there, but I like the idea of having the little red berries because, again, it's winter and there are red berries on the bushes where I live. You add them to your little heart's content. You don't have to use these, you can use something else, and baby's breath would be beautiful as well if you had some white baby's breath. Yeah, I think that would do the trick. You'll see what it looks like in the end. The next project is going to be a Valentine swag. Get ready, y'all. We're going to use Christmas trees from Dollar Tree, the white ones. I have some Christmas red paint, some white acrylic pins, a variety of ribbons. I have 3 here. I'm going to use some deco mesh in a red and white stripe, scraps of, I don't know, greenery that I have and some baby's breath, some little hearts, and a big old red sparkly hydrangea. We're going to start off by painting these hearts so that they can be drying while we're working on the rest of the project. I gave each of these hearts, and there are, I think, 9 of them, I gave them 2 coats of red. You can use whatever stickers, whatever kind of, you can use the felt hearts from Dollar Tree, whatever you have. I found a big bag of mine while I was out thrifting, but you can use whatever you can find for yours. So these are the trees outside of the box. You don't need anything for them but zip ties. Throw the rest of the pieces away or keep them for some other project. We're going to fluff these out flat on one side, and essentially it's going to be almost flat on both sides, but you want it to look like a tree though. You're going to fluff it out, stretch it out, make sure that you have equal number of branches on each side. Sometimes they're stuck together, so just separate them and then space them out so that they're nicely covered to both of them. I'm going to take one tree and cut that tip down because they're very, very long. Then we're going to flip the other tip over, twist it on itself to make a loop, and that's going to be the hanger. So that is perfect when you're making a swag, right? Perfect. And it'll be invisible. All right, so now I am turning over these so that they're facing away from each other, and I'm going to use zip ties to close them together. Now I'm not going to put these right in the middle. I'm actually going to put them in spaces where there are branches that are in the way, because the branches are going to keep them from sliding apart. It's just going to give it a little added extra security while we're tugging around on here, putting stuff on, taking stuff off. Then clip off the ends because you don't need any extra. You can use pipe cleaners or floor wire if you don't have zip ties for that. And then we're going to do the same thing, make sure that we have everything spread out nicely, so when we start putting down our deco mesh and our ribbons, everything fits down and has something to touch. I'm going to take that deco mesh, which I think is 10-inch deco mesh, and I'm going to pinch the edges together. And then start on my left side. I'm going to push these down and I'm going to twist them in. Now that's up there on the top where you go all the way inside. I'm going to measure out 10 inches because we're going to have 10-inch loops on here. I'm going to squeeze them up toward the center. Flip it around to the other side of the swag. And then we're going to go down on the right a little bit. Now watch what I'm doing here. There's a gap right here where my fingers are showing you in the left hand. I'm going to hold that and twist the top. When I twist the top, I'm going to then twist underneath so it locks it in those branches and it won't slide back and forth. I'm going to take another 10-inch loop and do the same thing. 10-inch poof, I mean. And then I'm going to cross back over to the other side. It's going to be down lower. It's like a zigzag, so it's down lower. I am going to lock those two branches together on the bottom, hold them with my finger, and then twist the edge. If you were to put this deco mesh all the way up toward the center, then you're going to have deco mesh only in the center. We want this to spread out all the way across the width of our swag. So you need to be sure you're connecting it in the ends of the branches. So the same process here. I needed to leave that all in so that you don't miss what I'm trying to say here, because that is important to the style of this swag. Once you get done with that side, we're going to come back down to the bottom. Another 10-inch poof. So we have 4 10-inch poofs completely. You could use scrap, some scrap deco mesh for this if you wanted to. Totally fine. I'm going to put it over there on the other side and then lock it in. Then all you have to do is just trim this off. So grab your scissors, you can cut them at a slant, however you want to do it, and it will be just fine. Now we're going to start to kind of go back and forth with this red satin with wire, then our heart burlap with wire, and then our unwired red and white stripe ribbon. I generally like to use 3, but you can use more, however you want to do yours. You just do it however you like to do it. I'm going to bunch up the center of these, press it down just as we were doing the deco mesh, kind of locking it in, you know, putting it in the ends, locking it in, except on the top and the bottom you could put it, you know, closer to the inside. But lock it down tight. Now I'm using 2 branches. Really, you could probably just use 1 branch and wrap it just with the 1 branch, but I don't want it flopping around. I want to stay nice and tight. So that's why I chose to do 2 branches and put those 2, kind of lock those 2 together. So now we're going in the opposite direction with the ribbon. I'm not going to measure this, but this would be approximately 10 inches because it's going to sit right on top of the other poof. So when you pull your ribbon down and to measure it to kind of twist it down, just make sure that it sits nicely on top of your deco mesh. It gives it a little bit of support and holds it up there. We're going to zigzag back and forth with this to the other side. And I had like just enough of that heart ribbon left. Isn't that crazy? Just enough to do this. I love getting thrifted ribbons, but the problem with it is sometimes that it's someone else's scraps, and if you're going to do a big project, you don't always have enough to finish, and it makes it more difficult for me to tell y'all how much you're going to need for each project. So I try to give you the measurements so that you can do your own math and figure out if you have enough scrap to use or if you need to go and buy something. But you know, I try to give you good options, like you can get deco mesh at Dollar Tree, so that it is cheaper if you can't thrift it. You can get items on clearance. And look at these ribbons. I mean, this stuff, other than the one with hearts, is Christmas. It could have been used at Christmas time. So when the clearance sales happened at all the stores, it would have been a good opportunity to grab up some red and white stuff to be used for Valentine's Day and maybe even for 4th of July. So when you get back down to the start, just go ahead, get it tied down, and then cut off your edges. I'm not trying to hide them. I'll leave them down there just like they are. They'll be somewhat covered. If you find that in your wrapping, some of the little ribbons got a little gap in them, because they're not glued down, you can actually pull, like you see me doing there with that red ribbon that's a little bit floppy. Pull that in each of the little joints where you connected it and have it sitting right back on top of the other wire. It's gonna, well, the other ribbon, it'll give it some support. And that's the idea when you're using a ribbon that is not wired. Give it some support by another ribbon. You know, I guess you could starch ribbon too. I bet you could. Then it'd really be stiff. You could really use it for a lot of things then. But no worries now, because it is all done. Got it all wrapped up. And this hydrangea is huge. I tried to stick it in this. It was just way too big for the look that I was going for. So I just cut it into pieces. We're going to make tiny hydrangeas to go all over here. I'm putting a little bit of that thrifted baby's breath with it to make little bundles. And this is how we're going to start off adding our greenery. I'm going to start off with a little bit and then show you how you can make it, you can add to it more and more to your liking. I don't have to be told I use way too much. That's just my style. You know, that's the way I like it, and you're not lying. I do use a lot. in some of my projects, but it's not too much if it's something that makes my heart sing and makes me happy and brings me joy. So I just recommend that you do what brings you joy. At this point, you think that that's enough and you want to stop it right there, by all means, stop it right there. If you don't have a hydrangea like this, the ones that you get at Dollar Tree will work perfectly. You'll have to buy several though because they're thin, but they'll work perfectly. All right, so I'm going to grab some of that leftover lamb's ear. I'm liking the look of this bluish green or this lighter green color in this project for some reason. I do like the darker ones in the other ones, but in this project I think it's really pretty. I think it gives a good contrast. That red really makes that white and red pop. I like it. So to each bundle that we've already glued down, I'm going to go back and add a little pick of the lamb's ear. Just to make it light, nice and neat. And I'm pushing it up through the foam as much as I can. Well, not the foam, the mesh, I mean. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the top and bottom. When I'm working on the top, I'm going to push it inward, and when I'm working on the bottom, I'm just going to push it upward. If that makes sense, you can see what I'm doing. I do add a little bit more to the top that I don't think you see me doing. Get your spectacles on because we're going to be making tiny little dashes on these hearts. The reason I'm doing this is because the pattern on the ribbon that I used has little dashes on it. And I want to have little dashes so that it matches and it looks like it's all coordinated and that it goes together. So that's what I'm doing here. And the reason that I didn't use my metallic marker from Dollar Tree is because somehow or another it looks like I've pushed the tip in. I share some of my craft products with my daughter. She likes to thrift and she might have done it accidentally. So I don't know, I might have to get a new one. But this worked fine. Let them dry because this is paint. And then you can start putting these in. So now I'm adding hearts. Definitely do not have to do that. But I like the look of it. I think it's sweet and it's romantic. And it looks so high-end. I know that word is probably overused with crafters saying that things are high-end, and God knows I used it plenty of times myself, but I don't know a better word for it. It looks store-bought. It looks like it was made and that you paid a whole lot of money for it, right? I mean, in my opinion, that's what it looks like. So 1 to each bundle, and then I'm going to add some to the wider parts of the wreath also. And then 2 on the top, and then there will be 2 on the bottom. You can definitely glue your hearts down onto your greenery if that helps. And there we go. There's my other little heart kind of hanging off the bottom. Then over here in this side, and then there's another one going over in this side. It just kind of balances the look of it when you hang it up and you look at it. Now I've got some of this, I think this is called Dusty Miller. And I decided, you know what, I love the color so much, I'm going to add a little bit more greenery. And I had just enough to add to each of these little bundles. And, you know, of course, on the top and bottom bundles as well. And I love the addition. The texture is the same as what's on the lamb's ear. It's really soft and velvety like, you know, the texture of it. But the look of it is a little bit different. You know, the shape, it's different that way. And I like it. A whole bunch. I love this little piece. This is so pretty. It makes such a good gift for somebody. Can you imagine giving this to grandma or your aunt or somebody at the nursing home? This would be beautiful. Somebody who's sick, somebody who you love. You know, at Valentine's Day, of course, you could give it to your sweetheart if you wanted to. And I'm going back around now and adding another layer, just adding additional baby's breath here and there. It kind of separates the red from the heart and the red that is actually in the hydrangea that we used. So you don't have hydrangea, maybe you don't even like hydrangeas. You can use red roses from Dollar Tree, you can use white roses. You can use any dang roses you want. You can use a different type of flower completely if that's what you want to do. But the end result's going to be pretty much the same. It's just a really pretty look. It's very different. So I tried to kind of fold over some of these little pieces that are sticking out that I don't necessarily think is important to the design that we made here. So I just tucked some of those under, just bend them in half and push them down if you don't want them to show. But again, it is still wintertime when we have Valentine's Day, so you could certainly leave the white there. And if you don't have the white ones, you can use the pink ones from Dollar Tree and do this whole thing in pink instead of red. Perfect. The next project is going to be the Love Wood Round. I'm going to be using my ruler, 2 rulers actually. I have 2 different reds, one of them is a lot darker. I have 2 flat paint brushes, one of these little wreath hearts, and then I have some wood letters, L, E, and V. I have a recycled piece of wood round here that is a 13-inch circle. You can use anything that you get that you already have if you want to redo it. Just paint it white, sand it off, or you can get the wood ones from the Dollar Tree. This one was already white, so I'm just going to start by using my tape, put my painter's tape over there. This is Dollar Tree painter's tape, and it works fine. In my opinion, it works absolutely fine. I'm going to start off by adding my red paint, and I am going to be adding, I think I added 3 coats of the red paint. I did 1 coat with this flat brush, and then I did the rest of the coats with a foam brush. It applied it a little thicker, and I think you didn't see the streaks as much or the line marks as much. You can go ahead and use some Mod Podge and put it over both sides of your tape on each side so it keeps it nice and clean if you would like. Pull it off while the paint is still wet though. Make sure you pull that paint tape off. Then I'm going to start on my white side. You can use the paint tape, put that back down on there and cover up your red. That way you have a nice crisp line, or you can do it like I do it, and I'll show you in just a minute how that is done. Because maybe you don't have painter's tape. What other things could you do? You really want to do some crafting, but you don't have all the tools you need. Well, that's when you have to be thinking outside of the box. I did do 3 coats here as well. I'm going to put down my metal ruler, scooch it all the way to the end of where the red is, hold it tightly in place, and you see I'm wearing my glasses there. And then I'm just going to gently brush this over that line, because if you put too much on there, it's going to bleed onto your red, and you don't want that. While that is all drying, I'm going to use these letters and these little half rounds. I'm going to cover up the holes in these because I think they might have been something like, I know they're used for crafting, but it might have been like letters for stockings. I can't quite recall. And I'm going to add those on here just to cover up those holes. I'm also going to take one of those little rounds and put in the middle of the heart so that it looks intentional, like it's supposed to be there, like maybe it's tacked down to the board. And then we're going to make the word love. This is nothing new. People are doing this everywhere. I'm going to measure down 2 inches into the red section. 2 inches down, and I'm just going to use my wood ruler as my place marker. I'm going to put down my letters, and then I'm going to work on the ends first and add those back down. I hold my ruler so I don't scooch it out of place, and this is so I can pretty much get it straight. Then I'll press it down, and then I decided, nope, I need to go right over there and grab that L. So that's what I did. I went to the L, glued that one down, and then I added my V, and I added the little heart. And I just put glue on one side of the heart because one side will not lay flat on the project. The other side will lay flat. So the part that will be flush, I'm putting the glue on so that it will stick to the board. Right there. And then press that down and hold it for a minute, and that'll keep it in place. I like to use these electricity insulators, I think they're called, to hold down my craft projects because they're very pretty and they work. They're heavy. I have some leather string or leather whatever. I'm going to cut a piece off because this is going to be our hanger. And then the back of the sign, which you can paint or cover with paper, whatever you prefer. I'm just going to add down the string with some paper to hold it in place. Now I did look at the front to make sure that I had that centered so we don't hang it all wonky on the wall. That's how it looks so far, and you could stop there. But I'm going to add a really simple bow to the top. I've got some striped ribbon that's like a linen cotton blend. I have a burlap ribbon. We're going to cut these into 7-inch sections, and I'm going to do 2 of each one. After that, I'm going to dovetail them, of course, and then I'm just going to make X's one on top of the other. I'm going to use my solid, stiff, heavy-duty ribbon in the back to help give it some body, my little old soft ribbon in the middle, and my wired plaid on the top, or gingham. I think it's gingham. Really pretty red, very, very pretty dark color. I'm going to squish them up in the middle with my fingers. That's what I'm trying to do there. And then once I have it in that shape, I can grab some jute or some thin ribbon or some floral wire, whatever you choose, and I'm going to tie it down. Always want to use a couple of double knots, because when you fluff these things out, if you don't, you can pull the whole bow apart and you got to start over. And I'm not about that life. Nope. I like to be one and done. So I'm going to fluff it out. I'm just pulling them apart on the side from each other, and I just kind of work on one side then the other, and then kind of go back and forth until I get a balanced look that I like. Then I'm going to cut off the cord. We don't need that anymore. We'll save it for something else. And then I can just add that bow to the center, to the side, wherever it would look good in your opinion is where you want to put that. I'm just going to put it down right in the middle. And that is going to finish off that beautiful wood round. Stick around, I want to show you what it all looks like in the end. You'll get to see a good look of all of them. I would definitely put that on my door. Here are the 3 projects all put together. These are some beautiful, beautiful, I guess contemporary, somewhat rustic, romantic pieces of Valentine's Day decor. All of which are intended to bring you inspiration, and you can do whatever you like, change whatever you like on these projects. Are you liking red or pink, or what colors are you doing right now for Valentine's? Do you even decorate for Valentine's in your home? I hope you do, because guess what? I've got some old-fashioned Valentines coming your way. Some retro, some vintage, Victorian. So you better be sure that you're subscribed and you click the little notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos. If you're already subscribed to my channel, I want to say thank you. It means the world to me, and when I say it, I really mean that. The channel could not be what it is without all of you who watch and support, and it is so much appreciated. I would love to have you stick around if you are not subscribed. I don't want you to miss out on the fun. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.